11 in the morning. Dave and Jeff, and yeah, this kind of just came together. We're doing the trade deadline preview show. It was something we were going to do in general, but we came up with an idea. Thought it might be fun to do it. Your idea to do it live. Thought it'd be fun to do some viz and graphs instead of people just kind of listening to us talk about names. People have been asking us to do a little bit. The younger generation, the kids are big on the YouTube, so right, that's they want their content that way, so that's fine. We'll have to see about going forward, but we figured for today it might be fun to do. And like sometimes I'll put on some stuff at YouTube at night when hockey's over, I'm legitimately out of stuff to do. I was having it on in the background. So if people, especially in a work from home environment, people can put this on right now, or they can put it on later. I don't know about our faces for radio, but there'll be some, some cards and stuff that they could look up at, and we'll kind of talk some stuff out. So I figured this would be a fun spin. We haven't done one of these since the 2020 mock draft, which people loved, we're really happy with. So we'll do it here. Might not be as interesting, but we'll try and make it as interesting. So this is worth doing today.
Yeah, I already botched the open and forgot to unmute your mic right as you got going there, which was great. StreamYard is fantastic. Just the interface is a little like I'm used to having, two hands to do things in a sense, when I TD and all that stuff for my day job. But yeah, this is cool. If you know that theme song, you've been with us for a while, so I appreciate it. That's some fun stuff. And this will be a little different. I mean, Jeff, we've done how many shows and we haven't had a true buyer? Like, sure, I understand in 17-18 they did buy, but that was more short term. Hey, let's strike while the iron's hot. They haven't really been a true buyer, let alone perhaps the clubhouse favorite for the biggest name out there. Though I guess recently that's still been the case in the off season. But yeah, it'll be fun. If there's an appetite for this, I'm sure this is something we can work in a little bit. And, I guess I'm surprised it actually went to Twitter, considering like half the people can't tweet right now. So that's a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy. But yeah, it should be cool. I'd love to do more of these. And, StreamYard's a really easy way to do this. And, we could even get to a point maybe where we, try to take callers down the road or something. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And Jeff, it just feels good to not be talking about, oh, they better get a first for this guy, or, hopefully they can get a third for him. It's so different than years past where we're just trying to sell off every scrap just to get something, as opposed to now where it's all right, well, we know the holes. We think we know where they can get better, and let's see what they can do. So it's refreshing more than anything just to have a different show in a sense.
Yeah. Honestly, like the trade deadline show started to get old, to be honest. Like I'm trying to remember. Do we even do one last year? Don't remember. It was that unimportant. Like the whole point of the shows too was just of what they're going to get back. This is like when we do this today, I don't know if we're going to say, hey, I'd send a whatever for that guy, whatever. Maybe only for a few guys will do that, but we'll just basically talk about whether or not we're interested in the player. And then, once the Devils do make the moves they do, we can talk about what they gave up after. Like this, I just kind of want to, like when we do the Sharks player and a few other guys, we can talk about price, but for the most part, we can just talk about players that.
There's a Sharks player the Devils are interested in.
Oh boy, that's it's going to be wild if it doesn't turn out the way people want. We'll talk about that shortly. But yeah, so we'll go through them and we'll just kind of talk about the players and they fit. And we can even, I would say right off the top here, let's kind of lay out, just general ideologies. Everything will be specific. But Dave, what do you want to see them do in general? Like for me, they need a consistent offensive producer, first line guy, second line guy. Like when we get to some of the players that aren't the headline names, I'm going to be pretty cutthroat about, I think this guy is actually a consistently good player, or yeah, this guy is, he's hit or miss. Like he could score 2 goals on a night. He could also go goalless for 9 straight games, and neither would surprise me. So I have a very thin avenue. We'll talk about the other 2 positions in a second, but as far as forwards go, Dave, like as far as trying to make the top line or the second line better, maybe more so the second line if the Sharks player doesn't work out, Like I'm very niche with who I want and how I want them to attack it. I'll explain that a little bit further. Now, if they want to get some third and fourth line guys for, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round picks, I've got no problem with that either. But as far as like players that are notable and players that are going to be somewhat relied upon, Dave, for me, it's really a very short, it's a very short list because when the Devils go and make a move for a guy who we think is going to score some version of goals or produce points, they've got to be as close to a consistent player as you can get. It can't be these guys who are just hit or misses for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think depth moves are depth moves. It's a different category in a sense, and I guess maybe there's some that someone might classify as a depth move, or someone else says he's a fringe second liner. Well, I guess to your point, if that's a question, then they're not that guy. I guess how I look at it is, we see that this team is close enough to be very competitive now, and the idea being another year of massaging things and learning and getting better, that realistically next year they should be conservatively a top 5 or top 6 or so cup contending team. Like, should they come into next year with preseason odds with top 5-ish odds? Should they? Maybe.
Yep.
And the reality is, if you're that close and that's what Vegas thinks you are, then you're a team that should be going for it. And yeah, we know the deficiencies. We know also what the defensive situation could be going into next year. I'm sure we'll touch on that a bunch at some point. But here's where I'm at. This team, the bottom 6 depth, and yeah, that's been an issue, and finding a third line, I think that's a big thing too. But they need another big time offensive player. They need someone who can truly drive play, can make them tougher. And honestly, we're going to get into Meier in a second here. And I think that you look at that kind of player and it's a perfect fit. Granted, I think there are a couple others who are worth talking about at least. But we've seen what Nico and Jack can do, and obviously Palat is someone, and he's starting to figure it out now, and we know he's a big game player, and he's someone who's going to battle and all that, and we know what Brad is. But outside of that, not only do they not have the 5th and 6th guys on their top 2 lines, but they're also missing a third line right now, and that's a little too much to overcome. Honestly,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a recipe for success in the playoffs. Now, if they go get a big fish offensively, they might not be able to do a ton to the third line, and that might be something that they're going to just have to piece together and hope it works. But they're that much more dangerous in their top 6/power play, perhaps, if that's the case. So yeah, it's fair to admit that there are holes on this team. I mean, pretty much everyone other than, like, I guess Boston has holes, and I'm sure Boston does too if you really dug into it. I think if you're the Devils, you're looking at this deadline now and everything else you do as something where you are another hit away from perhaps being a legitimate Stanley Cup contender.
Yep.
Maybe not this year, but as you move into the Hughes Nemitz years and everyone else gets a year older, you can make the case that if they really hit on 1 or 2 more big moves, that they put themselves right at the top of the list for the next few years.
Yep.
We weren't able to say that before, right?
No, the window opened a good chunk this year. If they do another 12, let's say 6 months, 12 months of really strong, savvy moves that are critically acclaimed, then yeah, I mean, we're right here. I mean, yep.
There is one caveat to that.
What's
The Edmonton Oilers.
What about them?
Not them specifically now, but think about what happens when you're that close. If you spend the money poorly and you say, okay, let me go get a fringe third liner to be a second liner, or you go out and overpay for somebody and it doesn't work. I know the Devils have cap room going into next year, but if you look at it in terms of what Bratt might cost, what another addition might cost, figuring out the defense, perhaps
they've been good with the cap, and it's going to get tight pretty.
It is, and the cap is going to raise within the next couple years, sure, but the point being, if you go and you spent the money in Palat, okay, you spent the money in Hamilton. If they go out and spend $5+ million on something and it doesn't make them that much better, that lowers their ceiling now, which I know is tough to say, but you don't have a ton. You're not going to have enough room to have redos on these moves from now on. Like, you're just not. If you add a $6-7 million player or even someone a little less, 5, and they're not a true impact player, that's money you now no longer have to try to get better. So I think that's why this gets a little tougher too. Is yes, we think of how big a correct move could be for this team in terms of vaulting them up the ladder of the best in the league, but also you have to be. And again, I'm not expecting that this is something Fitz is going to do because they've been smart with the cap, but a wrong move can put you in that territory of, oh my God, how do we find wingers for our centers, and that kind of stuff. So it's precarious here. You could do some real good, but also you have to be careful of if you are spending money that's beyond this year, you better be right about it.
Yep. So I think we're on the same page there, that it's a very few fits in terms of point producers for this year, and whether it means term for next year or not. So we'll do that. And as far as defense, Dave, I would like to see them get something. I think it probably has to be more legit depth than maybe actual really good player or really good addition. Like you're not going to be able to get Siegenthaler caliber. You're not going to get Marino type caliber, I don't think. I think it's going to have to be more of a 6-7 than a 5 or a 4. But if there's one guy who can pull that out of his hat, maybe they've got another one. They've got a name that we're not going to discuss today for defense that they're going to pull out here and add to the lineup.
Well, you've wanted the next Fitz the great train robbery by Tom Fitzgerald, right?
For defense,
you want to, yeah. I mean, if they could get out ahead of themselves and find the replacement for a Damon or a Graves, that would be cool, right? I mean, I guess in theory that you could have that guy be like your 6th or whatever, but I'm assuming it seems very much like Luke's going to be in the mix here, which is fine.
Right.
But I mean, if one of your top 4 goes down, you're not giving Luke, unsheltered minutes playing top 4 in the playoffs. You're just not. I mean, you'd like to hope he's going to be there in a couple of years, but I do think that there's a need for a minutes eater, somebody who can keep their head. Like, put it this way: if they had to play a game without Siegenthaler and Marino or Graves,
two guys going down.
If they had to play a game without 2 of them, I need somebody that can give them a chance to tread water a little bit, bumping up, like someone who's good enough defensively that you say, just don't make the big mistake. I understand that chances are they're probably not winning that game, but if it's one guy and you can fill them with somebody who's going to eat minutes and be effective there, then maybe you're okay. So I guess maybe long story short is, I think we all probably feel this way. Ball and Okachuk have not been good enough to say, okay, I'm going to have them in my playoff lineup, and I'm happy putting them in. Honestly, at this point, I'd probably try Nemitz or Luke Hughes over them, just because maybe they bring you a different dynamic.
Yep.
I don't think either of those 2 players, the 2 bigger defensive defensemen, are coming in and making a difference. So if you think that you need protection from anybody, just even picking up a knock for a couple games, I think you go do it. It doesn't need to be high up the list, and there's a lot of names we're going to get through today. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are beyond bad, but I do think in one way or another they need to, what's the saying, you need 10 defensemen to win a cup.
I mean,
I don't know about 10, but I mean,
you need 8. I think
the Blackhawks did it with 4 basically for a couple of the years. So I don't know if that's exactly true, but I get the sentiment being that, like, you're going to need to call upon depth players, and if you're a team that is on that line to begin with, the drop off could kill you. So I get it.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are going back to retrieve pucks, and they're taking knocks on every dump and chase on every forecheck. So you definitely need those guys. And I think, just real quick on that, like, I think I don't need another offensive defenseman. Probably I need someone who legitimately is actually a good defender, because you're probably not going to be able to find a 2-way type when we go through these names, Dave. I mean, I know there's a few guys as far as a fit that you can actually get.
You need someone who blocks pucks, honestly. I mean, if you're looking at somebody who might be forced into playing a playoff game, somebody who's willing to put any part of their body in front of a puck that they can. I mean, straight up, that's really what it is, hey, go in and just take vulcanized rubber to your body today. That's it.
Goaltending, Dave, I think in a world you'd like to. I don't know if that's really a thing you can do, though. Again, I don't think people really give up goaltenders. I know they do move, but I mean, I think they'll try to. I don't know what their feeling is on Blackwood, right? Because it feels like at times this year they've tried to get him games where it's like, man, I would have played VTech there. So like, I think they still like the idea of McKenzie. So I don't know if you're going to get, I don't know if you're going to get anything. I don't know how many names are really out there anyway, and how many other teams really need a goalie more than the Devils do. Like, I'm still curious of the non-contenders. Like the non-contenders, how many of them are going to be active buying? Like Pittsburgh, like I mean, Pittsburgh is an active contender. You know, Washington probably won't give up. Out west, I have no idea. But I don't know. Goaltending, Dave. I think hypothetically it sounds great, but I just don't think it kind of works. What do you think?
Yeah, I know a few people have said get Reimer when they go get Timo Meier. Sure, I mean that is something that could work, I guess, and maybe gives the Sharks something they think they can work with down the road. But yeah, it's always hard to read the goalie market because the goalie market doesn't exist until it exists. Essentially,
Yeah.
like if you have your goaltenders and everyone's okay, there's no goalie market. But if a goaltender goes down, then suddenly a goaltender that was on a non-contender goes from being, we're not going to trade him to now that you need him and we're the only shop in town that has what you need, we can charge you what we want for it. So granted, the prices for goaltenders still kind of aren't great usually, especially in the off season. Sometimes they're a little bit more, but yeah, I would love to see if they could find somebody who I feel a little bit more confident in than Blackwood. I just really, I think this is the end of the run for him after this year with the Devils. But in the same regard, I don't know if you're going to be able to, and I don't know if it's smart to go and try to move heaven and earth to get one. Now, okay, if there's a goaltender that exists that has a year left, like another year after this year, and you say, okay, it's just kind of the same number, we can figure out our cost already for what our goaltending is going to be, cool. But it's never a robust market, Jeff. It's always a very
No.
small
It
number
seems
of
quieter this
players.
year than usual too. Like I can't
Yeah.
remember if it was last year or 2 years ago where it was red hot at the
Mhm.
deadline with goalies, or maybe it was a summer. But I haven't heard much of
You
anything
know what
like.
it is? If you have a goaltender and you're a selling team, you should wait, either make it a deadline deal where the team is running out of clock to get the
Yeah,
goalie, or you hope that somebody gets hurt, because all you need is an injury to one of the main goaltenders from a big contender, and the first thing a team is going to do is say, I have to get Vimelka, or I have to get Reimer, or whoever, and then that completely changes the price. So for a team that's trying to sell a goaltender, you might as well just wait the market out. So I think maybe we'll see one or two at the deadline, but it just doesn't feel like there's been as much craziness in terms
yeah.
of goaltending this year.
It's been quiet. It feels like anyway. So, but as you said, it could be quiet till it's not. Real quick, as far as the Devils' salary cap, just want to do that real quick, and then we can start the fun here. What are you laughing at?
No, just looking at the comments. It's kind of cool that the interface for StreamYard gives me all the YouTube comments, and I can comment back without having to actually be on YouTube. So our friend Kevin already trolling everybody,
Great.
calling Jack Hughes a little punk, and that Brady touched him and he embellished his fault. Great, Kevin. I
Yeah.
wouldn't expect any less from you.
Yes. Yes. By the way, real quick here, I don't know if we're not really going to talk Vancouver or Seattle, but
What are we? What are we? We're not Elliot and Jeff. I mean, you're Jeff. I'm not Elliot.
I'm
But
yeah, no, I think you are, Elliot. I agree.
okay.
I went through his shifts yesterday. I mean, there's really nothing there. So I know I got flamed and dragged over the weekend by
Well, the Maple
the
Leafs love you,
Capitals.
apparently.
Yeah, that's good. There's just always a cycle of hate between the Canadian teams. So, yeah, the people who live in the capital up north were not thrilled with me, but it seems like some credence might be reasonable after the last 2 days. But
I need to make a fake Wikipedia page for the great American versus Canadian War and have you as one of the aggressors on the American side.
is that a thing, or is that a
Yes.
fan fiction? Really?
I mean,
I don't know my
no, it's
history.
not. No, the idea is you can make a fake YouTube and you can put like which people are on which side, and I'm literally just going to put Jeff O'Connor as one of the aggressors.
I
on
didn't
the
have to
American
be this
side.
person, but they've made me
Huh?
this way, so it's on them. Dave, as far as the salary cap and trying to figure that out, now I know the easy answer will just be not to worry about it because who cares, and they always find a way. But like the Devils are in LTIR right now, they have $2 million to play with. It's
Yeah.
basically just the Bernier money at this point. So if they are going to, and that's why I want to caution folks in general who have appetites for one move, one big move, a few moves. Like, yes, does it probably just resolve itself? It probably does. Like, in theory, like Andreas Johnson's probably a part of any deal because he's an expiring. I
One
mean,
would think.
you would think whether or not you like him on the team as a player, Dave, or not, you would think Miles Wood might be that as well. Like, they're not going to deal Holla. He is important enough to a few niche areas where they're not going to deal him. Same for Tatar to an extent. But there's probably enough guys who can plug in on the bottom and be a bottom six. So I think, and maybe, I mean, maybe you could clear them all out too. You send Bernier off. You send, if you're not going to do LTIR, send him off. You send Janssen and Wood off as well, and then you totally kind of clear the deck there a little bit. So I'm curious to see if that ends up being a major roadblock. As I've said in the past, I don't think that stuff really matters because everyone's an LTIR, so everyone kind of needs a helping hand, and it normally doesn't cost you more. So we'll see about that. But like, if you just look at, if you
You've
just take it
you've made a good point about that though. That if everyone needs help and
yeah,
no one's able to do it without it, then the price might not go up as much as you think because
I think
it's
that's the
almost like a
case. I
standard
don't know.
practice at this point. No, I think that's a good point from you.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Like, if you do other sports, if you retain money or take on salary, normally it means you get better quality prospect or more prospects or more picks, whatever. But I don't think that exists in the NHL because basically everybody's in LTIR. It's just my theory. It seems like it's, I think, an educated one, but regardless. So I think that's going to have to be the case, Dave. But without knowing if that's all that's possible, like right now, in theory, on paper, assuming we don't know anything, like they only have 2 million in cap space right now. So like probably all three of the Janssen for sure, Bernier next, and then probably Wood too. I mean, if you want to spend some money here,
Mhm.
but I mean, if everyone's going to get retained, then maybe you don't even need to send Wood off too. So just something to keep in mind that in theory, right now, the Devils can't do anything until they get some people to acquire them. But hopefully, as we just mentioned, it's common practice at this point.
Yeah, I think anyone's going to really have to do that. I understand the closer you get to the deadline, the numbers work a little bit better in terms of how much money you need to have open for it. But yeah, I wouldn't hate that. I mean, I do know, I think we've all kind of felt similarly about Wood that it hasn't been very good, and chances are they're not going to be paying him next year. So, I know we're looking at the highest end of what they can do here, but maybe there's a depth move to be made as well, and you're going to need money to do that even so. It's not like they have, a couple million laying around where a couple of lower price guys can fit in. They just don't have it at all. You're going to have to move people out to do it. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what everyone does here and how much money people are willing to take on and all that. And I guess that's just a question of what they want to do. Oh, wonderful Jack
Yeah.
Hughes news, huh?
Yep. So why don't we do this now? I don't feel like doing a separate pod for it.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a really long show today. Whatever. So Jack Hughes is week to week with another body. So now I'm pissed. Okay. Because I put out the theory on Saturday. I personally think there's something to it. I don't care what the Capitalers up north think. He took a Like, you get yanked, your feet go out from under you, and you fall on your shoulder. I mean, what happened to him last year in the Seattle game, Dave?
Yeah.
His feet got out from underneath him, and he landed on his fucking shoulder.
Hmm.
Now, that was his left shoulder. I went back and watched the tape again last night after after we kind of the news that did trickle out, and he landed on his right shoulder. So I don't know what needs to be done, and I really have not gotten angry this year. But if it's from that, I'm furious. Okay, and again, I started before. I went through his shifts against Vancouver. I didn't see anything there. Maybe I'll have to post it at some point and to show the people out there and say, hey, these are the worst knocks, air quotes, that he took in the Vancouver game. So I could put my hand through a wall right now. That's how angry I am. So I don't know who needs to find out what. But now I need to know if this is Vancouver or the All-Star game, because I'm going to be really pissed off about this. Now, week to week, again, we don't know what the fuck that means. That could mean back before the trade deadline, could mean April 5th. Maybe this is a if you want to get really stupid and deep state, this is Fitz masterclass, so he's got 8 million in LTIR, more money to play with now. If you want to get really stupid about this, no,
I
of
mean
course it's not.
that'd be super. I mean, look, you can use it if it's there for you, but I don't think you're trying to do this.
No, you're not, of course. So I don't know, Dave. I'm furious. I'm sure you're furious to whatever degree, but yeah. Okay. Well, here we are.
I want to be furious, but I need to know. I don't think we're ever going to know. I want to know if it was actually from the Brady play.
I need to know. I need to know.
Yes. All right. God. Yeah, they didn't need this right now. I mean, this is a really big game tonight. You know, the Fancies have been great. Jack has been scoring all their goals. Yeah, this is going to be another learning moment for this team here. If he's out for a game, he's out for 5 games, he's out for 10 or whatever. You're not going to have Jack Hughes scoring 2 goals tonight. So someone else is going to have to step up. It's going to have to be that Nico line first and foremost. So I guess you're getting Mercer at center perhaps, or Boakfist back in and playing center. No, that's fun. I will say this: I would not panic and make a move here now, but this might also show you, you've lost your best player now for at least 1 game, probably more.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to show you real quick if they have enough to make it look good. They're playing good teams. No one who's a world beater, but they're playing good teams. Maybe not Columbus, but this is going to be a test year for sure. I mean, they're going to need guys to step up. They're going to need to probably do a better. I don't think you're scoring 5 goals without Jack, or 4. You're probably going to need to tighten it up defensively a little bit. This is less than optimal. Of course, we said there was going to be breaking news when we did this. This was not the breaking news I was looking for personally.
No. Okay. If I can park my anger for a second. Yeah. To your point. I mean, there's opportunity here for guys. I've been kind of wanting a little bit more from Nico in terms of a really individually dominating shifts for a while. So he's got to raise his game here a little bit.
Yeah, he's. I don't want to say he's slipped, but he's
been good. He's
yeah. What was that quote the other day? Who was it? It was Martin St. Louis, and who was the player that they were talking about, the 85% thing?
Yes.
Or was it
Guy Boucher, maybe?
Yes, or Boucher and St. Louis. The idea that, even the best players can't go 100% every single game. You're going to get burnt out. And I think we've seen a little bit of that natural drop of just, this is what it's going to be for a couple games from Nico. And I'm sure he's going to come out of it. They're going to need it now. Brad as well. I mean, you're going to need the rest of your elite players to be truly elite when you're down Jack.
I've liked Brad's game a lot the last bunch of games. I think he started to look like all of last year, which is good.
You're going to need it. They're going to need him to drive play for sure. This is a really interesting time because, the Fancies have not been great for the last group of games, and now you're losing the guy who's, the Energizer Bunny for you.
But you know what? Again, I'm. Let me make it clear. I'm pissed about the injury, but it will probably be a great mental test for them to go through this challenge. I think. I mean, you want a little more adversity here. Like, okay, this wasn't supposed to be. It would have been nice to have cakewalked the next 2 months and just go right into the playoffs humming, like feeling more like it's October, November than it was December again. Sure.
Okay, so so Mercer's playing center tonight. Holtz is in.
Yep.
Smith is out. Okay, although I guess that makes you weaker defensively for sure. This is also going to be a big moment for Dawson Mercer. Can he find a way to be big for them. And
People have wanted him in the top 6, and I think rightfully so. I
he's
mean,
going to have to
just
carry a
different.
top 6 situation,
Yeah, how about that?
you know,
There you
for the
go.
next couple games. So, all right. You know, we're not the Rangers, so we knew there was going to be injuries. Somehow they don't. They're all their players are like Italian grandma couches, just covered in plastic, so they'll never be ruined. Um,
But honestly, I do. I don't want this, but you want to talk about galvanizing or pulling the guys closer together and feeling like they can't just skate by. That, like, the underlying say they've needed to pick it. They've needed to pick it up here a little bit.
yeah,
Now they'll definitely have to. So I am parking that side of my brain. I am fascinated by that. Of we gonna step up or are we gonna lay down here?
mhm.
Because after Jack went down last year, you know, they held it. They held the fort. You know, they were above 500 for a few weeks, and then everything fell apart. The goaltender, then none of the pucks went in. Then they couldn't stop any of the pucks, and then, you know, once everyone, you know, then everything happened in February and beyond. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. Any more thoughts on this
Um,
in general?
yeah, we've been 32 minutes into this, and we've really not said the name
Nope.
Meier. Look at us. All it takes is a bunch of bad news, and we get sidetracked. Yeah, I guess the only thing I will say this is I think the Devils need to play more low event hockey. That if you look at what the playoffs are going to be in terms of, you know, finishing checks and making it tough in every zone, that, you know, you would say, okay, the key to this is just the Devils need to play with the puck on their stick and generate more chances. I think they need to tighten it up defensively first. And work from there. That, you know, if you get a couple chances, yeah, you got to bury them. Hopefully, the power play can give you something. But um, maybe this is a chance for them to sort of
They were
get
pretty
into
loose on
playing. Yeah, like
against
just they
Vancouver.
have
Yeah,
not been a tight, like they have not been nearly as tight defensively. If you play that way
we're
without
just
Jack,
exiting the zone.
yeah, you're
Yeah,
just you're not. That's a weird bio steal.
yeah, that's
Oh.
it. I'm
Well, it didn't.
supporting
Oh,
Jack.
see,
There I go.
that's what caused the injury to Jack. By the way, it's not Brady Kachuk.
He switched.
He had to drink BioSteel instead of Gato the other day, and that was it. His, you know,
It's over.
his gut biome is in peril right now.
Oh God. Yeah. All right. We good here on this?
Yeah, let's do things. Let's hope instead of be sad. Right?
Oh God, what a fucking mood killer here. I literally couldn't sleep for like an hour or two last night because I was jacked up for this, and
Yeah.
now we're here. So,
Right.
and I guess for the other point of this as well is, yeah, it would have been nice to, you know, chase the division or get a home series in the first round, but now it really is just about, you know,
Survive.
yeah, managing, you know,
Yep.
play if you play great and win, great. If not, just kind of manage here, get through the next 2 months.
You know what it
That's really
is?
what it is.
Grind the hell out of tonight and get a win. Because if you get
Yeah.
this one and he's out for 2-3 more games, I know Columbus is one of them. You should be able to beat Columbus with like nobody in your lineup.
Right, right.
At least you get tonight. You know, if you do drop a couple, I know Pittsburgh's coming up. I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but yeah. Damn it, I forgot to load the Francesa, the stupid NFL film song with the league where he pays for play. That thing. I wanted to do that as we got into the Timo stuff, but oh well,
Yeah.
bad job by me.
Now just play taps instead. If you have the bagpipes version of taps, play that. All right. All right, let's try and rev it up here. I'm going to shake it out. Okay. So we kind of discussed where we're at. All right, why don't we talk about I don't know if I can rev it up. Can you rev it up here?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. You know, I should have. It's funny. I always joke saying I need to buy smelling salts because there's so many days where like I don't sleep and like I need that kind of thing. Or even driving home 2 hours, you know, at night or
Yeah.
whatever. I should have done that for today. We need one right now.
Yeah. All right. Timo Meier. Okay, so if you're following us on the YouTube, you can kind of see the graphics. I'll try and make sure it is pod friendly. Why don't we just talk about the player in general here, Dave? Then we could talk about, you know, all the tentacles off of him and that. I mean, he is just. I mean, he is an analytic and a old school pro scout wet dream. I mean, that's legitimately what he is. Like he gets to the dirty areas and scores goals there a lot. He can also make the creative, dynamic play and live in the house and live in the inner slot. He can tip pucks. He can, he can play make too. Now, I think he's seen more as a goal scorer, but he can point produce. He's a multifaceted offensive player. He plays against the best. He plays against the best guys. Um, he's a thick boy too. Again, to the old school scout, he's 6'1", 220. Like Dave, there has never been a opportunity presented like this. It feels like in terms of player available of dynamic chance generator and goal scorer and actual hard player to move and can score playoff type goals and be dynamic. So we can flesh it out here a little bit, but there's not much more you could ever want in a. I mean, the only fault, his only fault, I guess, is that he's, and I say fault with air quotes, is that he's a winger and not a center. But like he's the perfect elite trade deadline acquisition target.
Yeah, I think sometimes we get caught in a little bit of hyperbole in terms of players or wanting to will ourselves and just wanting more talent because of course you want more talent. This is the perfect player for the New Jersey Devils. I cannot stress that enough. Him and what he brings as a player is exactly what they need. Jeff, he is two separate players in one. He is someone who is a really good north-south player.
Yep.
He is a player that can consistently carry the puck into the zone. Now you think, okay, well, if you want to put him with Jack, we've seen Jack be able to kind of hunt in the distance when someone else is carrying the puck and he kind of finds himself space and then, all hell breaks loose because Jack has the puck and, you have to account for where he is and you don't know where he's going to be. Timo's ability to carry the puck and also the fact that he's big, he can carry the puck in ways that are not, it's not just speed. Like, yeah, he can get to his top speed quickly. I wouldn't say he's agile. I wouldn't say he's fast, but like he can move enough.
Yep.
But also like he's so strong on the puck that like you think of even like a zone entry where you're going to get walled off like within a couple feet of entering the zone or something. He can fight through that. Like that's what he does. Yeah. And why he's such an interesting player to add to this mix is that it's not that he's a power forward, like, oh, he's going to wreck people and, bring in the elbow or, he's going to absolutely just be, all over people. In fact, and sometimes he actually shies away from contact because he's smart enough to know, let me get open. But he's the modern day power forward in the sense that he's just big enough and strong enough that you can't do the things that you do to other players to him because he's that dynamic in terms of his ability to pass the puck. I think it's an incredibly underrated passer, Jeff.
Yep.
And his shooting ability. But why I was saying he's two different players is he's someone who can carry the puck and be, and hit a little bit of transition and all that. But also he is so good at finding space in front of the net. And that is something that certainly that every team needs more. What is the first cliche, that everyone get to the net and score. We've screamed at all the fringe outside players that the Devils have had over the last few years. We've screamed about, you need to get to the net. You need to get to the net. Look, Tatar got to the net. He scored. Like that's what the simplifying the NHL game is, and that's what playoff hockey is. And he can do that so well. And it's not just get to the net and be looking for screens and stuff. He almost has that Crosby-esque, I know where to be around the play, or be a weak side option when the puck is one place. Like I know how he knows how to be ready for a rebound or for a pass and all that. Like he's so good at scoring from around the net, but not in like a just garbage man kind of way. It's cerebral. He knows what he's doing. And yeah, I do think that there's even more to his game where I think he can shoot from a little bit of distance better, or, you can you could see more of that. And perhaps that's just stylistically. And also like, he's going to get to the area because that's what you're supposed to do, generally speaking. There's just so much to his game that he brings that is exactly what the Devils need. I know we've talked about Gaudreau, and I think obviously we can say hindsight being 2020, That's not the kind of player they needed, though we all would have been, jumping for joy if it happened.
Yep.
Didn't happen. Okay, Tkachuk didn't happen either, though I think Tkachuk is a similar player to Meier.
Yes.
Meier's probably got more fine offensive skill. Obviously, we know what Tkachuk brings. We're not too happy with them right now in general,
Yep.
the whole family.
That's
But
right.
I don't know. Like I don't think it's hyperbole here to say that this is the exact kind of player they need for their top six. And if you're saying, what can we do to bring out the very best in the New Jersey Devils, other than the fact that he's a lefty, a left shot, not a right shot? If he was a right shot, absolutely perfect, 100%. He's a 99 simply because he's a left, and I think the Devils still need more right shots. But that's a nitpick to the nth degree.
Yep.
This player brings everything they're lacking.
Yes. I mean, he would make the power play better. I mean, he could. I mean, I know the power play's actually been pretty useful lately, but I mean, he would make. I mean, he could maybe even, if the power play 2 needs to go out there, you throw one body down there, could make the power play 2 not useless as well. You want to talk about little margin trickle down effects as well.
Who'd you take off if you want to put him on power play 1? I know this is real out there. Who would you take off power play 1 to put Timo Meier
probably
on?
Palat.
Okay.
And then you slide him down, and then you've got a useful net guy, and just throw pucks in, and he can just bash him in. It's that easy, I'm sure. But I mean, Dave, as a 22-year-old, 4 years into his career, he was on the Sharks team in 18-19. I think that team went to the conference finals against the Blues. He scored 15 points in 20 games, and he was like a 22-year-old. So
yeah, he's been good in the playoffs too. Yeah.
Yep. He had like 5 points in 10 games as a 21-year-old. So he hasn't been in the playoffs a little bit. So you can only imagine what a few years of everything. Like he'll probably be a problem on the forecheck. He'll probably win wall battles too. Like literally anything you could want from an analytics side or from looking at it from another from the pro scout angle. Like he does a lot of things at an excellent level. The things he doesn't do at an excellent level are still adequate. Like there's really not a flaw. Now, is he a technician in the D zone? Is he going to shut down lanes to the slots at a high rate? No, but again, that's so really doesn't matter. So like he's
not a net negative defensively. At the very least, we can say that, correct?
Yep, 100%. Yeah. Like he's everything else is excellent, and there's really no deficiencies to his game. So like he would be a terrific ad. He would push people. He would push someone down or legitimately down to the second line, third line, all that, and he would just be terrific. He's making $6 million this year. He's got a $10 million qualifying offer next year. I know we've discussed this a little bit on some other shows already, Dave, of trying to do that, do Brat, all that. I don't know what's inside his mind. He could he could get traded and sign an extension tomorrow. He might not sign his next contract until July 1st of 2024. Don't know what's inside his head. Would love to know. Unfortunately, we don't have that information. But Dave, I want to get here. I think I'm okay. Again, now seeing if you can make it work cap-wise next year. I think everyone's already, in a lot of Devils fans' mind, Timo Meier has already been acquired and extended. I think that's a lot. I don't have a problem in theory of them getting him without an extension and essentially doing what a lot of teams do, and that is you get the year and change, so you get the 2 cup runs. And you would still control the player over the summer, albeit at the crazy qualifying offer, the last of his kind, if you will. Because, again, I don't always know what comes along with extensions, Dave. Like, sometimes you do have to pay the premium on an extension to get it done while you're doing the trade. Other times, Vegas basically got the extension done. If you remember, Vegas didn't give up a first-round pick for Mark Stone. They gave up a second, and they gave up Eric Brandstrom, who was a first-round talent from a few years prior. But so I never quite know if you have to pay more for an extension. Like, I think that kind of falls under the same category of doesn't really matter. Just like holding on to or retaining money doesn't matter. You just kind of have to do it because that's the cap environment. But I guess, Dave, as far as acquiring the player, and we could kind of build out the conversation, would you be comfortable? I know the price point will be the point here. But in general, would you be comfortable getting Meier without an extension?
Yes, because I know this is weird, but either you're losing Brat and you're going to have infinite, well, quote, infinite money to pay uh, Meyer, or you're going to say, screw it, I'm just going to pay him both anyway. Like, I don't think he's going to walk on them. I understand maybe they'd be screwed into having to take, uh, having to end up with the qualifying offer, which would be not great. But yeah, I know people are saying that they could flip him again. That's true. You could still get something of value for him if you had to flip him. Essentially.
There's flexibility, sure.
Yeah, there is. But yeah, I think it's more about, like, to me, all this comes down to what is Fitz willing to do money wise. I don't think this has anything to do with return. I think the Devils have plenty of options in terms of giving enough prospects, picks, and so on and so forth, and roster players. I think the Devils have every ability to get this done in terms of what they have in their system. I'm not worried about that. They're not going to be asking for Hughes or Nemitz, and if they are, that's not the starting point. The Devils have plenty of other good options, including a Holtz that should have value to them because they have Eklund they have to get going, and those two are our boys. So I really think it's about the money with Fitz. And if Fitz is okay with understanding that paying Timo Meier and Jesper Bratt $9.25 million each, if that's something he doesn't have the stomach to do or they don't think they can do, then fine. Maybe you're not going to do it. If you're saying, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to spend the money on the good players and, figure out a way to get through the cap next year and hope it goes up a little bit within the next few years. Okay. Maybe you do that. Maybe you say, I'm going to have to deal with it in the long run. Yeah, I would be willing to make the trade here, as long as, I mean, in my mind, I'm finding a way to sign a good player. If it
Yep.
costs more than I need to, I can cross that bridge when I get to it because the cap is going to go up. It's not like they are so up against it now that they're not going to have any wiggle room. But obviously, the fact being, I don't, if you're going to lose Brat because you get Meyer, that doesn't help me, honestly. Like,
Yep, sure.
I would rather go and say, let me find someone cheaper, let me find the next guy, let me go, find somebody coming off of an ELC or something, and pay an even more premium price just to have the money if that's the case. I don't know where Fitz is going to land with this. I really don't. It's different for us to say we'll pay for it and then not realize that there is cap ramifications, and understanding that there are people in the organization that are going to look, are going to be prognosticating the cap for years to come, and saying, okay, well, Luke Hughes's contract is only 2 years, right? So you're gonna have to pay him perhaps at some point soon. Mercer's going to be up, and you have to wonder what he could be, especially if he has a good playoff run. There are definitely questions, and also, Jeff, the one that I keep saying that is tied into this. What are the Devils doing defensively next year? I know we've been back and forth on if they want
Yep.
Graves or if they want Severson. Okay, whatever the case is, we don't know what it's going to cost for the Devils to figure out their defense next year. It might be they just go with Hughes and Nemitz or find another bottom barrel guy to throw into the mix and say, okay, that's our defense. We'll make it work. Okay, you can do that. But what if the Devils win 2 rounds here this year and you think, oh my God, we're like really close to being a cup winner here? You're going to really go into next year losing 2 parts of your top 4, say what you want about where Severson ends up slotting, but 2 big time minute eating defensemen, and you're going to replace them with rookies. Like, I don't know if there's an appetite for that. So then that question becomes, how much is that going to cost?
I
Without
think
knowing that,
I want to
it's
jump in on
tough,
that
right?
real quick because I'm
Sure.
with you on the defense thing. I think the idea is that there's enough great infrastructure here that you can. Okay, is it ideal to start the season with less than Graves, Severson? And by the way, I think Graves has been not so good this year. And I actually don't mind just losing him in general, but it's tough to be patient. But I think if you're like, yeah, if you don't have your plan figured out by the draft or free agency, I get it. It leaves you a little uncomfortable. But I think the idea is that there's enough infrastructure here that you can you can be okay with it. There's enough good players and talent here that you can survive it and then attack it. Maybe it's something that comes up. John Marino came 2 weeks after we weren't ready for that. That came 2 weeks after free agency started, and they signed him. So uh, I think it's just gonna be evolving. Yeah, Severson and Graves could be gone, and they don't do anything, and then a week later they trade for a guy and say, "Oh, I didn't even know who was available. That was a perfect guy to
Mhm.
fill in." It's just the unknown, I think, right? I think if they can do it, like the Severson one's going to be its own thing. I would just lose Graves entirely. I think you can find or do better or find uh, a
But I
fine
think
replacement
Severson's
for.
going to be a lot more money.
Yep, sure. And again, age 29 is a tricky one, so that'll be. Yeah, in theory, come July 1st, you would have neither of them on the roster, and you don't really know what you're doing there. But I think if you feel like you have enough around, like um, that you can just survive it and you'll get to it, and if it becomes gaping, then you can make your move. But they might have to be patient in some areas that make you uncomfortable in order to
Mhm.
kind of keep their flexibility and not
Sure.
get pocketed. So
But
I
I
can't
guess
wait to see
part
what
of
happens. Yeah, sure,
no, go ahead.
it's
But
tricky.
I guess my point, the bigger point of all that is, it's not as easy for the Devils to just say, "Sure, we'll figure it out," as it is for us to be like, "Oh yeah, just pay him and pay Brat and be fine."
Of course. Yeah.
Because obviously, as much as okay, maybe you like Timo better than Brat, maybe you like Brat better than Timo. Well, one of them isn't putting them over the top, whichever way you want to slice it.
Hmm.
So, I think it's more of understanding that it's not just okay. Yeah, we'll pay them $9.5 million each. That's fine, cool. Can you do that? Is it smart to do that? Are you going to be able to fill the other holes? I mean, we're also talking about that the Devils need to kind of overhaul their bottom six for next year. Well, if you have, they have what, $36 million right now.
36
Um,
million for Brat. Let's say
mhm,
Meier. Do you want to bring Tatar back on a little bit cheaper number, like maybe 2 million, 3 million, something like that
maybe,
for 1 year?
maybe.
What do you want to do with Yegor Sharangovich? Do you want
Also,
to bridge him? Do you want to do a mid deal, like a 4x4? Can you do that?
I think he's the
Versus
one that you can't give money to personally.
probably. Thankfully, you have Mercer on ELC next year. Now,
Mhm.
uh,
I
you
would
know,
I would try to hammer that deal out this summer though, if I
yep.
could.
I think the cap will go up before 24, 25.
Yes. You got to, it's almost like you got to get through next year. But
That's
the
the big
question
one.
is, what is next year though? Is next
Correct.
year a year where you're happy of what you accomplished this year? Is it a year where you think you really need to get better because you got exposed come game 83? Is it a year where you think you're a player away from winning a cup? We don't know that yet. That's
Yep.
what makes it tough, that you have to make these decisions before you kind of know the type of way you feel about this team, right?
Sure. Yep. I mean, just for next year, 36 million would be for Brat, maybe a reduced Tatar. Hall is not going to get a raise at this point in his career. Do you want him? Do you try and find someone cheaper than 2.3 million? Sharangovich RFA. I mean, it would be a raise off 2 million. Do you want to do that for a few years? Does that make him more of a sexier trade potentially? I'm not worried about the other guys per se.
It's
As
tough.
Dave said, two. Well, in theory, one top four defenseman, right? We've gotten so used to, Dave, the idea, like maybe you only have to do one defenseman next year if you want to have a
Sure,
broader discussion.
but is that defenseman $6 million? Is that defenseman $3 million? That's
Right.
money that you're either going to have or not have, right?
Yep.
I mean,
So let's just say one top four defenseman, just
mm,
because that's just kind of the way the slotting looks like, and
yeah,
a backup goalie. That money
that's
will.
the biggest question. Is I was about to get to that.
Yep.
How much do you want to pay for a backup goalie?
Yep. McKenzie made 2.8. I think there were some people who thought VTEX 3.4 upon look felt a little, a touch rich, maybe a 500,000 too much, but like that's what it is. Bernier costs $4 million. I mean, that's going to eat some. If you want a human, and God knows we just lived through the bad goaltending era, like you're going to want to spend multi millions there, probably. Whether that's 2 million, whether that's 4 million. I mean, that's
Yeah, I
coming up
mean,
here too.
backup goaltending is essentially protection. If you think
Yep.
you're a good team and you're going to lose your goalie for a month or two, you can't have what happened 2 years ago happen.
Yep.
if you're dumpster diving for goaltenders, you're probably in a bad spot. I mean, I know he's played better lately, but you know, Halak was a major part of the Rangers' struggles early on in the year, right?
Correct.
I mean,
Yep.
you probably shouldn't be. I'm not saying you need to go out and get a goaltender that's making more than Vanacek, but like you probably need to address that with some sort of, you know, decent number to get a goaltender that you'd feel like. I guess the way I look at it is if you're a contending team, you should look at your backup goaltender and say, if I have to play this guy essentially 15 games in a row, am I cool with it?
Yep.
Or
So
can I survive basically?
sure. So to circle back into Meyer, as far as the ass, Dave, I mean, Scott Wheeler just ranked them the second best prospect pool. Like, yeah, Hughes is not having, like, that's just not on any planet, solely for the brothers alone, obviously. Nemec, no. I think if you want, you can be comfortable, doing first some version of Holtz. Shouldn't be unafraid to lose Casey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially, you see Seamus Casey, you see the special qualities, but Dave, you can also see. I think the comp for him has been like Sam Girard, and Sam Girard's had some good years, but you can also see like on like this year's Colorado team, if he's asked to do a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more, like it can go sideways for him. Like he's not had a good year this year, so can you cash that chip in now, especially if you feel like your defense is already kind of has some slots filled, so to speak, and definitely does contract wise. Like you could be comfortable doing that, but boy, would it be nice, Dave, on the other side. I've said it, you've said it. When we do trade proposals and we try to do the predictions, like we're always cutthroat. Like we're always gonna if we're talking about acquiring a player, it's always gonna be more because I don't want to be the person who says second Cole Brady and Michael Vukovic for Timo Meier. Like we're above that, okay? Like not to sound pompous, but we're above that. So we'll always go the
No,
opposite
we're
end of
not the
that.
Rangers, is what we
Right.
are.
But maybe it's time for the Devils to get a good player. Every time we see the deadline, Dave, I think we always go, "That's it for X good player. That's it. That's it." So maybe it's time for the Devils to get um, Timo Meier for a first and Shaq, Graham Clark, and Casey or something like that, and call it a day. So hopefully it's our turn to get a player that's really good for,
Mm-hmm.
and we feel like, wow, we just stole that deal. But
I mean, I think a Holtz Casey first, or throw one other little thing in there, another pick or something. I think that's a good package. I mean, if the Devils were trading away a player who I knew they were going to lose, I understand there's people who have really soured on Holtz, so let's maybe take ourselves out of that a little bit. Because he's so young.
yep,
Um, he'll score tonight. Now, watch. It'd be
let's
nice.
go.
I think that's a really good package. Like Seamus Casey, in reality, I thought has always been the trade chip. I love the player. I absolutely love his game. But if you look at the fact that they are not going to be, putting a ton of rookies into the mix over the next few years, granted, yes, another ELC defenseman could be a good thing down the road. But, what makes these trades work? You mentioned Samuel Girard. He was the main guy in that in the Duchesne trade, right?
Yep,
Because that's what moves the needle is offensive defenseman. Yeah, and Seamus Casey's a little smaller. The kid's a friggin' wizard though.
yep.
I think he's if that's what it takes to get it done, that hurts because Seamus Casey, a Hogwarts character. Yeah, when you play the new Hogwarts, that new Harry Potter game, you can name your guy Seamus Casey, and you can dangle the dark arts here and there. Yeah, like it would suck to lose him because I've always felt that he's the trade chip. So in a sense, if you lose him, then the next trade you try to make, you don't have him in the mix. But
Right.
I think that's like I know the Sharks fans, and I actually didn't hear word for word what they
I
said.
didn't
I just
listen either.
I just I
Yeah.
just heard the general idea of what they said, so that's all I need to hear. I'm not gonna waste my time on it. But if there's a package and it involves Seamus Casey, you're getting a good player. I can tell you that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Our willingness to move him is more the fact that, at least me personally, they have Nemec and Hughes, and they have NHL defensemen signed already. So I don't know if there's like a great path for him down the road or a quick path for him. Um, yeah, Jeff. I mean, I think Holt's a first, and and Seamus Casey, you would like to not give up Casey, but
Sure.
if that's the case, maybe they want a Sharon Govich or something, and I'd be happy if they took
If
him.
you get
honestly.
extension, lock it in. That for sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it make your stomach turn a little bit just because like you're taking not taking a leap, but it's like you don't want to lose those guys, but you obviously are getting this great player. If you can get an extension in, send Holtz to first and Casey tomorrow. Because you're going to have a player on a 6-year, 7-year, 8-year extension, something like that. And easy, absolute
Yeah.
easy call.
And again, I really do think that's a fair trade.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
Sharks fans want to come
That's
fight
better
us,
than a lot of the
go
stuff we
ahead.
see.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, like what are the Rangers giving up? Everyone else on their friggin' roster is untouchable. I mean, Kravtsov, who can't even touch the ice, is somehow untouchable. Which means Brendan Othman is untouchable. Which means don't even consider Kako and Lafreniere because those guys are gods amongst men. They already have the statues pre-built. They just got to finish soldering the end of it. Like, what are the Rangers give? Okay, they have 2 firsts. Okay, so you want to tell me that maybe Greer is going to say that 2 firsts matter more than anything else? If that's what he's doing, then I don't know. Considering that the Rangers 2 firsts could literally be 32 and 31 or something
I mean, the
close to
Rangers
that.
prospects are all fucking wingers. Like I can't say I'm worried about
Yeah,
them. Like okay, Holtz is yes, but Casey alone would be a unique.
if I'm making a
piece.
trade of that manner and I can get a good defensive prospect,
Yeah,
I'm doing that every time.
yeah,
And if you're not, then I hate to say it, but I think you're wrong. Like,
yeah.
stockpile the hell out of young defensemen because, when eventually they do decide to rebuild and you're going to give that kid a chance to, he's going to do another year or 2 in college and all that. And okay, maybe that's the only scary thing is he's a college kid, but I don't think he's staying all 4 years.
Yeah.
Casey. Yeah. Get it done. I don't think as long as it does, I don't think they're giving up Nemitz or Hughes. Outside of that, do what it takes. This is a player that I know we've talked about next player or the next big guy. I don't know if there's a better. I don't think the next player is going to be the better fit. Same thing as if we thought that Gaudreau was the right fit, we were wrong, and Meier's a much better.
Sure. No, this is a top end.
Mm-hmm.
Not often you get a top end player that's also the absolute right fit.
Yes.
Like this is everything. Do they get him? I think they get him.
Sure, I'll say yes. I don't want. There's too much negativity with Jack going down. I
Let's
can't
go. Let's find that. That's
again.
that's
I think they have the. I do believe they have the best ability, package
easily.
wise. I just wonder if it doesn't have anything to do with that, and it's all about money.
Yep.
And that they're looking at it and saying, I don't know if I can. I don't know. And I think Bratt's completely tied into it. Completely tied into it because you can't put it this way. If Bratt was signed already. Yeah, you could announce today we're giving Timo 9.25. Cool.
Yep.
Okay. You can't because Bratt's going to say either I want that or I want more. Do you want to go there?
And I think that, to your point, to wrap it up, as far as we just did a little cap discussion there, is maybe you go get both those players, and the cost of that is next year in terms of defense, goaltending.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you just have to maintain a little bit and tread water, and then you really go hard in 24-25. It'll be evolving.
Yeah, and you know what though, and like Jeff, and from that perspective, I understand. Yeah, if you think that you're good enough to maybe win a cup next year, okay. I don't know if they're quite going to be there, but maybe they are. To your point of if you need to kind of not go all in next year because you've put too much money up front and you need a little bit more money to clear, a little bit of the cap to go up. There's going to be, this is going to be the first year where there's no pressure, like if they make the playoffs, if they, God forbid, win a round or two, this team is not going to be like, oh, we might want to fire Fitz or, we might want to sell the team or some bullshit like that. Like this is the first year where things are going to be good, where like internally there shouldn't be pressure. Yes, you'd like to see them take a step forward next year from wherever they finish this year, but I don't want to call it gravy next year. That wouldn't be fair. But next year, if it needs to be a year where they can't quite do what they need to do because they're looking at a 2-year plan, I'm fine with that. Because next year they should be getting the season ticket numbers because they're going to be good from the start in theory, and all that kind of stuff. Like it's the perfect time to do it next year. If to your point of that, Jeff, is like if you're ever going to be a little, all right, we need to take a little bit of a step back to look at the
Yeah.
future to be better. Next year's a year to do it, right?
Yep. I think if you're trying to consider 18, $19 million in winger contracts, then it might just have to be the case. We will see. It'll be evolving. Okay. That ends our Timo Meier version of
Okay.
discussion. So why don't
Other
we?
less interesting players now.
Yes. All
Away.
right. So we kind of bank this again. Don't hold us to it hard, but we're gonna do top six forwards, middle six forwards, defensemen, and then depth forward. And I don't. Maybe we'll skip the goaltending, Dave, just because it's its own breed.
Jack Hughes getting injured took out our goaltending time.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure,
I
I'm
don't
with
care
that.
anymore.
That's
But
a
so
good
we'll do
one.
this. Maybe we'll spend a good chunk of time. Maybe we'll spend very quick time. But why don't we run through it, Dave? So why don't we talk about top six forwards? And in theory, some of the names we put on there last night are relevant to this discussion. So let's do it. So you want to fire up the names here and get them up on the screen? We will do it. We'll start with the top six forwards. There's about 13 names there. And why don't we talk about Vlad Tarasenko? So Vlad is winger on the St. Louis Blues. He's 30. He's making $7.5 million this year. Now, Dave, this is one of the few guys that I have interest in because I think if Meier can't happen, you can do Vlad, and you're going to get a high-end offensive player. You're going to get someone who's a pretty good finisher, especially if he's going to play with a certain few players. Uh, he'll help your power play. He's played in the playoffs. He's won a cup before. Now he's going to give you nothing defensively. That we know. But I very much like the idea of him from the point of we just talked it out, Dave. Of okay, maybe the Devils can't make everything work right now, but can you get some version of a really good offensive player who legitimately belongs in a top six, top line, whatever? Get him in here, and then money comes off the books. It doesn't take you out of the running for Meier, pending he doesn't go out of this deadline. Like you could still do Meier over the summer if he doesn't move. I guess that's one thing we didn't talk about as well is that the Sharks don't have to trade Timo Meier. Like Mike Grier doesn't have to do that deal. I know everyone's already ticketing him as gone. He doesn't have to do that deal right now. Just wanted to throw that out there
Sure.
again. But I think Vlad, he's one of the few guys I'm interested in, Dave, in terms of he would fit. You would keep your flexibility. Now, if we're talking first round pick for him, I'm probably out. You want to give a second round pick and some B prospect or some guy who could give the Blues a cheap contract who could fill out a mid roll, a lower end mid roll for them. I think that's where I'm at. Probably he'll probably end up being too expensive, but he's one of the few guys I'm legitimately entertaining because I think he can actually play a top six role.
I am not a fan of him anymore. I think
Okay.
he's been a different player since he got hurt. He just screams. You bring him in and he scores 2 goals in the regular season and none in the playoffs, and then goes and signs with the Rangers in the offseason. Like that's the kind of player I think he is now. I don't know how motivated he necessarily is. Yeah, he can still score, but I don't know. I'm to your point of I'm not giving up a first for a rental this year. If I give up a first, it has to be towards something that matters to me beyond this year. Now I understand Tarasenko at 30 years old, you could sign him, but I don't know. I think they're going to get more than they want for him. You have to wonder about the shoulder and everything, and still I just don't know if he's the same player, and I don't know if I'd be willing to go as far as probably what would be expected to try to get him.
He probably costs too much.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get it. Yes, is he one of the few names that's out there that probably belongs being in a discussion as a true top 6 player? Yeah, I don't know. I just get the feeling him as a rental, he's going to do his time and then go try to get another contract somewhere.
All right, well, move on to the next guy. Let's talk about Brock Besser, the winger, right-hand winger on Vancouver, who honestly I don't have much time for personally. I know everyone's trying to make it a thing, or like we've mentioned sometimes he gets injured. I know he's dealt with some family stuff as well. His finishing numbers have plummeted. Okay, so maybe there's some regression due there, but you're not getting a lick of defense. the last 2 years, his offensive play driving numbers stink. Like the finishing is not good as far as I mean, like that's basically what you're looking for. Like you can Dave. He's the guy. Basically, he was the guy I was subtweeting at the top of the show. Like you get Brock Besser in here, and by the way, the contract sucks. 6.7 million this year, next year, and the year after. Like I don't know if I would consider him at half retained, to be honest. And I don't even say that as like being like overly cutthroat. Like he could be a guy, sure. Could he score 2 goals in a playoff game for you? Absolutely. Could he play a 7-round playoff series and have 0 points? That's definitely on the table. He is wildly inconsistent for a bad contract who honestly at this point it doesn't feel like he's good at anything. Like I would not be interested in him in just about any facet.
I agree. If he was a pending UFA this year, maybe because like you think, oh, he gets a chance to get himself hot and get paid. Maybe I'd like it from that angle, but this is a guy who is supposed to be a goal scorer that hasn't really scored and doesn't bring you much outside of that. And if you want to talk about, we said the bringing in the $5 to $7 million guy that if he's not good enough, you can't get better. This is exactly that. $6.7 million for 2 more years after this year. If he's a nothing player, you're screwed, Jeff. Like this is such a bad deal. If it like even if you want to say okay, they eat half, maybe I could get on board, but still I think you'd be better. And also they're gonna really eat half for 3 years or for 2 more years. I don't think that's happening.
And I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. Like even if you were to eat half, I'm still.
They should pay somebody to take the contract at this point.
Correct.
Almost.
Like I would still not give up anything of any type of value.
No, I mean the contract is almost unmovable if you're actually looking at both his cards, his actual production, and anything you've seen from the guy on the ice for the last 2 years. And yeah, I understand he's gone through some personal stuff, and that sucks for sure. But no, I couldn't be less interested in this player.
Yep. I mean, if you watched him on Monday night, I don't even know if he played the game on Monday night. Just can't do it. So, all right, the next guy, and now these become of interest. In general, Dave, like, could you get one of these next 2 guys here? We're going to talk about the 3 main centers here. Why don't we go to Ryan O'Reilly first? I was going to come into the show today, Dave, and say, boy, if you don't like the wings, could you, in theory, get one of the rental centers, Ryan O'Reilly, for one of them, and essentially just move Jack out to the wing? Like, essentially just do the reverse holla or the inverse holla or whatever it would be. And then, essentially, you're still good center-wise, and you've essentially created a top 6 winger, in theory. That was the top 6 winger you're looking for. You just did it kind of in reverse order. So, I have time for at least discussing that idea out a little bit because I think it could solve a problem. And you could make the case, Dave, that there's more top 2 centers available than top 6 wingers. So maybe from a supply and demand standpoint, if the Devils were trying to make it work, this would actually work for them. Now I know Ryan numbers are kind of fluctuating a little bit. Defense has dropped this year, but the offense has taken a step up. His finishing is, a net positive in general for him. And he always takes on the toughest guys. So I'm curious, Dave. Again, this comes from the Doug Armstrong is probably good at his job, and he's probably going to do a really good job in the return he gets for Ryan O'Reilly. So, and he's a rental. He's $7.5 million. I think I like the idea, Dave, even if Hughes wasn't injured, because you could essentially just increase your top 6 in a different thinking type way, but probably going to cost too much.
Yeah, I again, I'm not really looking to give up a first for a rental, and I think someone's going to give him more money than you can probably pay him as a 3rd-line center. Now, if you've listened to this show or know me personally, Ryan O'Reilly is literally one of my top 3 favorite players in hockey. So I'm a little biased towards this one, I'll admit. But I'm going to try to be objective with it. The one thing that does interest me, Jeff, is remember how he kind of hated hockey in Buffalo and even said so?
Yeah.
And then he went to St. Louis and just went off. Mm-hmm. I think he's in the same malaise with St. Louis this year because they're going nowhere. And I really wonder if like you go get him and then he just absolutely goes off. And obviously you're not getting him along with Timo Meier. That's way too much money to take
No,
in. But I still think if you're not going to get Meier, okay, let's pretend like that's not happening. Not saying it's not going to, but let's live in that world for a second here.
sure.
I still think their biggest issue right now is that they can't figure out how to have a third line that actually belongs on the ice that can really help you tilt things. You go get O'Reilly, you almost have two, you could almost say that line, depending upon who plays wing with it, and a Tatar or Mercer or
He
Haller,
would make
whatever you
most
want to say.
anything work.
Yeah, like he's a really good player, and he's good defensively. He can still score. He can win faceoffs. Suddenly you feel that you have four lines, right? I mean, assuming that you feel some sort of good about, at least the McLeod and Bastion part of the BMW line.
Yep.
I think this is the way I would go. Not necessarily O'Reilly, but if I'm not going to get Meier, I think I need to find myself a third line center. That,
Sure.
you look at what, and it's probably still going to be the Rangers and what they're going to roll out there. And I'm not trying to say this in jest. I'm actually looking at it objectively here. They have that kid line and they have the Kreider line, and you say, okay, well, what are they rolling and how can we be better or be deeper than them? Not having a third line, you're probably kind of screwed in that regard. You're going to have to really be playing the right matchups, and every time you have to throw that hodgepodge third line out there, you're probably not feeling good about it. If they can go swing O'Reilly and it doesn't cost a first, I'm doing it. I think this is the kind of player that, for one, he's won. He's a champion. He's a leader. Remember the whole O'Reilly practice thing?
Yep.
Like, this is a guy that can absolutely teach this team something in terms of what it takes to win. And I think he fills in an area of need. I would be very interested in this. I understand some people will be less so, and I get it. But pretend we're in a world where Meier isn't happening. I really think they need to worry about finding a third line center.
Yep.
And honestly, O'Reilly, I think, is good enough to really still be considered a fringed second line center. So you'd think that he'd raise the game of anyone else he's playing with.
Oh yeah, he could be versatile in that regard. Depending what the night brings or what type of game it is, absolutely. And he could be your best player some night if you could see him return to a little bit of form. All right, next guy. So I mean, we could talk about Dylan Larkin quickly here. Again, I don't know. I think Steve Yzerman is to the point of stubborn where I could actually see him. Okay, so he offered him a contract. Larkin said no. I could see Yzerman to the point of being stubborn of, I'm not going to trade him. I'm not going to trade him in June, and then just loses him at the deadline. Like, would not shock me at all if Dylan Larkin just totally goes right to unrestricted before the Red Wings even trade him. So same kind of deal, Dave. Now, maybe he's not an identity fit. Now, he does everything really like pretty well. Now, he's never really played he hasn't played a big game in a while. Like, I'm kidding. I don't even know if he has any playoff games under his belt. I know he's been around for a little bit, but like, he's obviously very good offensively. His defense is adequate. His finishing kind of jumps around a little bit here and there. So, I mean, I've got time for the player, Dave, but I just don't feel like it's going to be a thing. I guess that's where
I think Dylan Larkin might be one of the most overrated players in hockey.
Ooh.
In terms of, like, he's a good player. I don't think he's somebody that's worth giving $8-9 million to. And I think that's like what the number of what they want is. And I think if you're the Red Wings and you're really not quite as close as you think you are, is it really smart to give Dylan Larkin, $8.5-9 million? I don't think so, personally.
He probably should have been locked up on a Nico type deal years ago.
Yeah,
or whatever.
that's what I'm saying.
Probably
Like,
the issue.
He's a good player if you get him at 7. Do you love him at 9? Probably not.
No.
I understand I'm looking at the chart and it's pretty damn good, sure. But again, I just don't see him as, like, he's not a game breaker. He's not somebody that, like, I don't know, he feels like he'd be a perfect fit for Carolina, honestly. Like another like
Yeah,
good robotic,
yeah,
like
really.
all the fancies are great, but like I don't think he's got that like true star in him kind of thing. Which I mean, Carolina's looking for a second line center, so this could very well happen. But then those teams have kind of linked up on trades before.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I don't. I mean, it would be a pure rental for the Devils, and like
I
they're
just don't know where
getting
you're playing him. Like he's
no,
not a first line center.
no,
Like,
he's
is he
playing
gonna play
third
with
line
third line?
center,
Yeah, I don't know if it
and
works.
like sure that'd be great, but like he's getting a first for Larkin if he trades him, probably
Yes.
more than that. I mean,
Yep.
obviously they would have to get to a point where they are nowhere near close on money, and I'll admit if I would kind of agree with Stevie Y on that of I can't give this guy $9 million because I'm just not close enough to be also like they spent a lot of money last offseason too. Don't forget that Detroit.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I don't see where he fits as a Devil.
Yep.
I'll be very interested to see if they actually get to a point where they think they can't get a deal done.
Yep.
My guess would be, even if they don't get a deal done in the long term, I think they're going to at least like try further than the deadline. I'd be shocked if he gets traded. I would.
Okay. All right, next guy. Really last center mainly here. Jonathan Taves of the Blackhawks, who I feel like these two guys are going to get traded and they're going to get a return based on their name and their cups and their overall career numbers. Whereas, Taves had the injury last year. Now he came back and it looked like he was, his numbers show out that he was, adequate defensively, good offensively, decent finisher. Not really help on the power play or the penalty kill though, and the numbers have cratered this year. And there's just a lot of shred on there, Dave. And it's 10.5 million. Who wants to make that fit for 1 year as well? So I don't like that. That's just the Devils, the way they roll, the way they do things. Like that's just not a smart move for them to make.
No, I'll admit I think they're still going to get more than they probably should for him because
Yeah.
it's Taves, and someone's going to look at him and say, well, if you put him on a team that doesn't suck complete ass, he should be good. And maybe there's some truth to that, but he's still hurt though, Jeff. I mean, he's been hurt like all year
Oh,
basically.
has he? Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Gotcha.
he's been out, I believe. At least still, like I just had a Chicago game the other day for work, and he wasn't there. So, um, yeah, in terms of the Devils, no, I don't think as much as like you think, oh, he's a leader and all that, but I don't know, maybe it's him being part of all the stuff that happened where I don't look
Yeah.
at his leadership and admire it anymore. Maybe
Sure.
that's not fair. Don't really care. Um, yeah, hard pass on Taves. Let someone else make that mistake.
We can just move into Kane real quickly. So Patrick Kane, basically the same age winger. It's crazy to me, Dave.
1% war.
Like it's so strange. Now I know the defense is always 0%
Mhm.
percentile for him, but it feels crazy to me. You still watch what he does with the puck, and again I don't watch every Blackhawk game, but it's crazy that the independent offensive play driving is zero. Because like
Mhm.
if you watch him play, Dave, like you would not think that at all. And I have to imagine that I would have to think. I know the numbers we're looking at here. If you're watching the video, like those would just bump up on a good team. I know they're isolated to the player, but like the Blackhawks have been a dog shit hockey team for a long time. Like that, like he'll get a bump somewhere else, but yeah, when you see all these breakdowns of him independently, who has an appetite on betting for that and assuming he's going to be what like not first line player? You'd be betting on him to make a return to like a second line player, and even
Mhm.
that is it's 10.5. Retain it. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like Uh, me personally, like I like Patrick Kane. I would love to see him go somewhere not the Rangers and have like a fun playoffs or something like that. But yeah, who has the stomach to bet on that?
um, I'm trying not to bury him simply because
Do you think he
I have a
sucks?
feeling game one he's going to be in the lineup against the
Oh
Devils.
my god.
Um, but he has not been good.
Okay,
That team is horrific. I mean,
sure,
they are
sure.
going through the motions to be nice about it. They are not trying to win games. They are not trying to try in games. Um, he's going to go from not, from basically having a live scrimmage essentially for 50 something games to playing real hockey. I don't know. I mean, certainly not for the Devils. I have no interest in him. I would think the Rangers simply because, like, you put him with Panarin and maybe it just
Yeah,
clicks. Um, but yeah, I have zero interest in Patrick Kane.
amen. James Van Riemsdyk of the Philadelphia Flyers, who I feel like the Devils were attached to for a summer or two, or that one summer where we were talking about him quite a
Oh,
bit.
click the wrong guy.
We'll try James there.
Wrong
Okay.
James.
Yes. So his numbers are pretty, his trend lines are pretty steady. You kind of know what you're getting. Finishing has dropped off a little bit this year. Takes some stupid penalties at times. He's a big number two. I like the idea of him maybe filling a role, Dave, in just a pure, hey, he's going to get you goals. He's not going to kill you defensively. I mean, maybe he will. Maybe there's going to be times where he will kill you defensively. Um, you still want maybe someone else who'd be really good around the net on the power play. Problem is, are the Devils too fast for him to keep up? Like that's always been one of the knocks on him is just like he's just not fast enough. Not really a transition type player. So he would be niche to this Devils team, Dave. But is he worth it niche wise in general? The contract might be a little too. The 3.5 might be a little much to even want to do. Like he's not a first line player. Can he actually work on a second? Like he's not a third line player. Like if you're bringing him in, he's not going to play third line. Do you think he can actually work on a second line? I would probably just avoid the player altogether because I think it's too niche. But his numbers are actually better than I thought they would be independently.
Yeah, he's kind of what they need, but at the same point, like that's if he was the better version of himself. Like, yeah, he's a guy that can be a good net front player. Can you envision him working on the power play one way or another? Could he be somebody that you put as the third guy on, somewhere in the top six and he just cleans up? Yeah, I do. But also, like, I think there's probably better options one way or another out there. Like, I
That's
wouldn't.
the way to say it. I think that's
Yeah,
the way to
like
say it.
if they traded for him and it was a third round pick or something, like I'd be fine with that. I would be. That being said, if I was ranking all the moves I would make, and the relative price, probably wouldn't be at the top. But like, I think his net front ability is pretty good, and he's a good power play guy as well. And I think the Devils need to score more goals from in tight, and he does that. I would entertain this
Sure.
if other things weren't to be.
Yep. Okay. Next guy. Pavel Buchnevich. I forget how much term does he have as a contract? I'm interested to see when you pull it up. I grabbed all these. He's got 3 more years, 5.8 million. 27-year-old winger, kind of play both sides. Great offensive player. Last year, traditionally has been a great defensive player. Now his numbers have dropped from like 100th percentile down to like what's that, the 20th percentile. So assume he's not that bad, and that's going to bounce back a little bit as well. Not really a special teams player. Does play the hardest minutes though. Like Dave, I think he would be fantastic. If you're going to strike out on Meier, like I think this is a good plan, but again, it's going to be this year and 2 years after that. It's tough to get a price point on that because Doug Armstrong should be asking for a ton for him if they are even moving him. Like they might just keep him. I'm not even sure he's entirely available, but that's kind of a hard price point to pin down, Dave. What do you think about Buchnevich? Because obviously he's very good. I think a lot of fans really like him, but I think it might be a little tricky just in terms of there's a lot of terms, so you'd have to pay a lot because of that. That's a trickier one.
Come on, let's be real. Half the reason why we like him is because we're dreaming of Pavel Buchnevich filling the net against the Rangers and them
And Sammy
completely.
Blais.
Yeah, I mean, that would be hilarious. It would be that'd be very fun to watch him do it. But no, he's a really good player. As much as I think he fits that mold of like, all right, there's your extra money. I think he's good enough. Like I think he's a top 6 player.
Yep.
I think he'd be really good with Jack Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's as bad defensively as this year's number says. I mean, that team has just been a kind of a mess this year,
Yep.
And I think he really brings it offensively. He's someone that is a really good shooter. He's got a knack for being in the right place at the right time. Again, not really the power play guy, but you don't necessarily need him to be. I just think he he rounds out your top 6 pretty well. I mean, yeah, he's not the sexiest of names, but I think he's really close to that. Maybe you'd love if they ate a little bit on it, but I don't know. At that point, the price might get pretty high. You're talking about a really solid player for 2 more years after this. You're looking at a first and a prospect, probably, right? Like,
Yep.
is this similar, if not more, than the Coleman return? Knowing that it's an extra year, probably a better player. The difference being that the Coleman number was so low that it was a great part of it. I think you're looking at a first and a pretty good prospect, essentially.
Yeah. I could see
Like,
them asking
would you
for more
trade
too.
Holtz in a first for him?
Right. I
Or
don't
maybe
know.
not Holtz, but like, see, the problem is I don't know if I love any of the outside of like, say Nemitz and Hughes are not a thing. Holtz and Casey, what's after that? Like, do they
Oh well,
like
sure.
Shakir? Do they like Gritzuk?
You
Do
have
they
to
care?
assume those guys are all nothing in terms of the
Yeah, so
NHL
I'm saying is
landscape.
I don't know what the next level is for the Devils there. It might be just be what they like or not. But yeah, I like Pavel Buchnevich. If they could make this happen within reason, I think he'd be a nice fit here.
Yeah, too hard to pin down what the price point is, but obviously he would be
Sure.
I mean, he would be about as good as you could do if you're not going to do Meier, right?
Mhm.
I think that's fair. Would he be like he would be next on the list after Meier? Is
Yeah.
that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so keep an eye on him. Why don't we move down to Sam Reinhart, who,
A lot of blue there.
yep, uh, he would be that extended rental type, 2 cup runs. Didn't know his defense was that good. His offense has always been pretty good, but uh, not having as good a year this year. Trying to get a feel on him, Dave. Right shot. I mean, that kind of makes him a rarity. Like, I'm curious what the appetite is. Like, Meyer could come with a 7 or 8 year extension. Buchnevich would be 2 years plus. If you're not going to get the elite, and maybe some would call Sam Reinhart elite, do you want to? I would. I love the player, Dave. I just don't think it fits. I
Mhm.
just don't think it fits. Like the Devils probably shouldn't do a first plus for an extended rental. Even though
No.
Reinhardt's very good. Like I don't know, it's a tricky one. I mean, maybe some people would like him for a first plus, but I think that would just. I think it probably just cripples you more than cripple's not the right word. I don't know. I just don't think it.
Mhm.
He's a great fit ad wise. I just don't think trying to make all the
Yeah.
moves work makes sense.
And not only that, but like Florida went all in last year. Are they going to punt a player away that quickly and not get like a stupid return? Like, I understand that they may not make the playoffs, especially with the Islanders playing a little bit better and, Pittsburgh and Washington still existing and all that. Buffalo maybe even being better than them. I was worried about Florida coming into the year, and it's kind of panned out. I just
Hmm.
don't think they're good enough defensively or in goal. But even then, if you're the Florida Brass, are you trading away all your guys this quickly? Like you're literally going to go from kind of being all in to
Yeah,
just
very
punting
strange.
guys in one
Yeah.
year? Like if anything, like I would be, at least if I were Zito, I'd be um if you want to get a guy from me, you can pay a super premium price and I can think about it. Otherwise, I'm not running to the phone to make the trade call.
Yep.
Like I think it would take a lot to get him. And Sam Reinhart's a nice player. Like maybe a Carolina is the kind of team that should go all in for him.
Yep.
I don't think the Devils yet are in that spot to go get a guy that is expensive and probably you're not going to re-sign him in 2 years.
You know
But
what,
I
David? At some
understand
point, the
why.
Devils will be doing Sam Reinhart type moves.
Yes,
We're just not there yet. I don't think.
great, really nice player. Really, and you saw him go from being, a flawed but good player just because Buffalo was a mess, and then you saw him start to take off
Yep.
when things were going better in Florida. I just don't think he's quite the right fit, but again, good player.
Yep. All right, let me move on to the next guy, Tyler Bertuzzi. So that's crazy. He's a UFA, the winger for Detroit. He's 27. He's got 4.8 million left. Always been a good offensive play driver. Defensively, never quite. The finishing went from great last year to bad this year. He does always put up points though. It's got a great number if you retain it too. You could a lot of teams could fit him in at 2.4.
Mm-hmm.
Again, just the same thing, Dave. I'd like the player. I think he'd actually be a perfect fit for this team. You want to talk about a top 6 winger, put him with one of the guys who are great at both ends, and Nico and Jack, and you don't even have to worry about that defense. I'm just not paying that kind of my niche window of I'm just not going to pay a first for a rental this year on
No,
Bertuzzi. But he would actually be a really good fit with this 22-23 Devil team.
I think he will be a Washington Capital. Just feels
Yeah.
like the kind of move they make,
Okay.
and what they kind of need, adding another guy with
Yep.
some punch there. Yeah, all the COVID stuff is rearview mirror. It's not an issue anymore. Nice player. I think he brings it. I think he's someone who, you know, finds a way to just always be involved offensively. Um, I mean, maybe he's the kind of guy that like a lot of teams are looking at next. He plays both wings. He can fit anywhere in anyone's middle six, essentially.
Yeah.
Either you have the room to make him a third liner and you're in great shape, or you need another player in your top six and he fits. Really, really amorphous kind of player. Can win pucks and all that, and is tough, but also I think just has more fine offensive skill than maybe he gets credit for, perhaps. Not the greatest playmaker, but yeah, I would entertain this for
Yep.
sure. I think he's someone that if the price is good enough, like again, I don't know what Eiserman's going to do here. Like they're not making the playoffs. There's too many teams ahead of them.
Yep.
And if you're the Wings, do you look at it and say if I can get like 2 or 3 more firsts into this mix, how do I feel? You may want to do that, and I'm assuming they are going to be sellers, but like it's probably going to be expensive coming from them.
Yep.
It's like buying a brand name thing because it has the Steve Yzerman name on it. You're going to pay more.
Yep. The
If
premium.
they could get him for the right price, I'd be all about adding a Bertuzzi,
Sure.
honestly.
Very useful offensive player,
Yeah.
winger too. Troy Terry's next on our list. Someone sent him this. I just don't think he's going anywhere. Like, great offensive player. Finishing was really good the last 2 years. Everything's kind of fallen off for him the last little bit. Now he's an RFA. I forget when he's actually a UFA. I think this is one of the few RFAs we'll talk about today. Like, yeah, the Ducks are in that weird spot. Like, okay, well they stink this year. They do have young players coming. He's an interesting one of, is he going to fit by the time we need to pay him a lot more big bucks? Is he going to be the one who, is he not really going to fit the timeline? He feels like a player we would talk about like a few years ago of like, he's not going to fit the timeline. Like, he's still 25. The Ducks still have like a long way to go. He's a winger. Like, he's been an all-star the last 2 years. I think he's been an all-star the last 2 years. Maybe just this year, but a really good finisher, great transition player. Okay, so he doesn't play much defense. Like, yeah, the Devils should obviously check on him, but the Ducks are probably just going to keep him because he's a cost-controlled player, and it's probably too early to deal him yet. Let me see when his actual UFA year is.
I just took a pit stop real quick. Jeff, you didn't mention that he got hurt recently.
No, I didn't know that. I was trying to look up his UFA.
Yeah, apparently it was not so great. I had the Ducks twice last week. Lucky me.
Okay, so yeah, even more reason. I mean, I was
Yeah.
basically just saying that they should probably keep cost-controlled players, even though he may not fit their timeline soon. Like, we're probably not talking about many Devils trading for many RFAs today. He's one of the rare names we got of that. Those are just too confusing to figure out. Like, the Ducks, if they were going to trade him, should probably ask for a ton for him because he's cost-controlled for another 2 years at probably decent numbers. So, like, would be a good ad, just like too many compounding things there.
Yeah, and also like they can't be trading him for pennies, right? I mean,
it would have to take big. It would have to be big.
Yeah, like if his value has gone down that far, like keep him. Like you got to at least turn him into something important. First and beyond. Sure, like the player. I just don't know if he's sustainable at the scoring rate that he had last year. Like I think he's good but not great. I don't know if I would necessarily make this move, especially for probably what the price is going to be.
Yep. Tyler Toffoli of the Calgary Flames. Been a great playoff performer. He's a winger, got a great shot, clutch. He was great in the bubble a few years ago. Last year, everything crashed on him. Now everything's rebounded. He's 30. He's got another year at 4.3 million after this. I do actually like if you're talking about playoff guys, I actually do like him.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just not going to go. So extended rental. They're gonna if they do ask for honestly, and he's probably not even available, Dave, because they're in the playoffs. So, that might just take the as much as we're going to discuss him here, how much time we're going to spend on him. Where's Calgary at right now? They're actually they're not in the playoffs currently.
Yeah, but are they willing to? They're battling essentially with Minnesota and maybe if you think it is Nashville,
Yeah, Brad Treliving's not selling off parts after what he did this past summer. I wouldn't think so. He's probably not even available.
I like the player. If you want to talk about a guy who, it's funny, he's 30 in his picture. He looks so friggin' old.
Yeah.
I remember him as like the new kid on the block torturing the Devils,
Yep.
and then being in the 14 series against the Rangers too. It's amazing that he's 30. God, where the hell is the time gone? Look, I like the player a lot. I think he's someone who, what you're going to get from him. The playoffs are nothing new for him. Maybe next year, if they're out of it, he's a guy that everyone's looking at, especially 1 year at 4.3 left. You know what? I think he'd be more interesting to me if he was a rental. I just don't know if
agreed.
Not that the money is prohibitive because it's 1 year and it's 4.3, but I just don't know if I really if you're gonna pay for the extra year, I don't know if I need him next year necessarily.
No.
I wouldn't be upset if they got him. Price withstanding. But yeah.
Dave, once we get through the next name or two here, essentially we're mostly gonna be stopped talking about first round picks, which will make it a lot easier because I think that's what we've been doing now. The last last few names is that, hey, like this player, can't pay a first rounder for him because either rental doesn't make sense, even an extended rental, I don't like him in a first round price. So that's basically what's gonna come here. Last guy is Travis Konechny, who, he's a fun player. He's a lot of what the Devils need. He brings he's rambunctious, but not to the point of it costing him what he still plays a very good offensive game. He's slippery. You want to talk about someone who takes a punishment in front of the net. He gets his goals. He gets his points. He's playing on a Flyer team basically with very little help. His defensive numbers are not great. Finishing was poor for 2 years now. It's skyrocketed this year, so maybe you'd be buying high in some point. He's $5.5 million for 2 years after this one. Dave, loved the player. I think you'd see all those numbers isolated or not would all prop up on a much better team. I think actually what he's doing with this team is actually pretty commendable.
Mm-hmm.
Would love him. Again, kind of that area though of what the hell is a price on a pretty good player who's got 2 more years of term. Konechny's going to be I think Konechny's going to be a great deadline deal for someone
next year,
or maybe even the year after that.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like it's a little too far out.
I will be wanting him then probably too.
Sure.
He's a really good player. I know some of the numbers here aren't great, but I also think a lot of that is he's always had to be a little bit more grindery than he's probably wanted to be because it's the Flyers and the certain way that they want to play and probably needing to bring it more so than being skilled because, they've never, even the Voracek, Giroux years, I don't know. Konechny is a guy who I think has another level of offensive skill to his game that we haven't really seen in big spurts yet. I think if you put him with a Nico or a Jack, I think you see him take another step offensively. We know he can score. He can pass the puck pretty well too. I think he's never had a chance to really just be an offensive guy. That it's always been you got to bring it, you got to play the Flyers way. We also have to try to play team defense. And I know his defensive numbers have gotten worse and worse, but I think part of that also is just they're icing half a roster of AHLers.
Yeah.
Everything is a mess there. I would take those numbers and say, yeah, he's probably not a great defensive player, but I also don't think he's horrific. Again, the cards are great. They're an excellent point for us to jump off of, but I don't think it's the end all be all on everybody.
Yep.
I think this is a better player than maybe what that 40% WAR says he is. I would love him. You got to think it's an expensive price. You got to think it's first Holtz and Casey maybe.
Yeah,
Are you willing to do that for him?
no,
I don't
no,
know if I would.
nope, you're not. Because again, as you said, like Travis is a really fun player, but you're probably not ticketing for 80 points, 70 points. So like, is that where you want to make your big stand? It should probably be more for like a point per game uh, type player. So we'll see. All right, why don't we move into the middle six guys? Now these guys will be more affordable. Now I may not have as appetite. I might be. I mean, I've been pretty quick on some of these anyway. But
We got to be quick on some of these because we got a lot more to
yes,
go.
I have a few in here that I would like. Some of them will be
There's quite a few on this list I
okay.
very much
Very good.
enjoy.
All right, why don't we
All
get
right, the
into it?
first one.
Uh,
We can have the existential discussion on him afterwards.
Absolutely. I want to start with it. No, okay. So Max Domi, who's playing with the Blackhawks this year, I think he's played center for them, but he's always been like a mix of center, winger, wherever he's gone. That's been one of his issues since he's been drafted. It's just never kind of fit anywhere for him. Very good offensive play driver, decent finisher. You're getting zero defense with him. He's gonna do stupid shit on the ice too, but you do want him to do some stupid shit if that makes sense, because you want him to be annoying and a pest. Like the Devils could definitely use a little bit like annoying pests with offensive skill. Could certainly be on the Devils menu. Like Dave, yes, he would be
Mm-hmm.
a great fit. He actually is a free. Actually, I thought he had one more year on his deal, so I don't know what they're expecting to get for him. Like the asking point, the finalizing point's probably a second round pick. He would be a lot of fun. I don't know where I'd park him on this Devils team though. Is he your third line fun player uh, him and Haller are gonna skate around and
Him and Mercer could be a little bit of a chaos line.
yeah, him, Hall, Mercer, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you want to do.
They can all play center basically.
Yeah, that's true. Uh, Fun player, like the player, would
Mm-hmm.
rather not see his father in the building for the playoff games, but I guess that's just what we'll have
But
to
isn't
do.
isn't the I know someone said this to me and it kind of changed my perspective. I hate Ty Domi. I
Yeah.
absolutely despise him. But
Hmm.
wouldn't it be something to make him have to root for the Devils?
Okay.
Like kind of like we get the last laugh of like, haha, you have to come root for us and maybe even wear a Devils jersey now. So maybe from that perspective, like, you're forcing him to have to assimilate to Devils culture or whatever it
Right.
is. Yeah, I think Domi might be towards the top of my if in a Meierless world, I think Domi might be at the top of the list for me.
Okay.
I think he's someone who, whether you want to play him at center or you just figure out between a Mercer or a Hala who play, I think he makes your third line better for
Hmm.
sure. I think he's somebody that even you could play as a second line winger if you just decided you needed to do that for whatever point. I understand he's never really been much of a defensive player, so that's not the best necessarily, but he brings it offensively. He can muck it up a little bit. This Ranger series is going to get nasty. Trouba is going to try to kill someone at some point. It's going to happen. It's probably going to happen more than once. What the Devils do in response to that is going to be big because that could happen in game one, and hopefully he doesn't kill somebody, but he's going to be hunting, and the Devils probably don't have somebody that can just mix it up. And I don't mean fighting. I mean like someone who's gonna have the same level of liberty taking that a Trouba might.
Yep.
I'm not saying that's the reason to go get this guy, but if you think that he can give you something offensively, and he has that the shit mixing ability to him, it makes him attractive. I think, as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure there's people who probably feel love him, hate him, maybe can't get past the dad thing, which took me a while, admittedly. But I do think he'd really give you something offensively. He scored still to this day, like one of my favorite goals of like the last number of years. I think it was when he was a
Playoff
rookie.
game.
No, I think it was when he was a rookie, and he scored like this absolutely insane, like full speed, just wired backhand shelf shot. And it was like my favorite goal of like whatever season it was. Yeah, so like I've always kind of been a fan of him as much as I kind of hate him too. So
Hate that you
yeah,
love
I,
him, love that you hate
I
him.
I think if we were power ranking this, he's definitely towards the top
Okay.
for me.
I guess I'm curious as we go through these names here, if the Devils are going to go mid-6 guys, like, do you want an offensive guy? Do you want a defensive guy? Do you want a two-way type? What costs more?
It's a great
Especially
question.
because we're trying to find identities, right? We want the Devils to have an identity as a third line. So, like, Max Domi's there. It's hard to trying to put together a third line that has chemistry on paper. Obviously, I'm not breaking news there, but like as we move into the next guy, Dave, like I think here's a guy who is a great two-way type in Niederreiter, in that you're going to get offensive production, you're going to get chance creation, finishing. His defense is okay. He's not going to help you on the power play per se. He's got another year after this one. I would almost like him more as a rental, and he can play either wing. He's 30 years old.
See, I'm the other way with that actually. With him.
You like that he has term.
Yeah,
either,
and it's
either
not
cool.
not that expensive. I mean,
sure.
I get where you're coming from. I'm not trying to say you're stupid for that.
No,
but,
no. It probably costs you maybe more than you might like. But Dave, I this is in my back of my mind. I wanted to just check it right now. I think he's great because you could probably put him on second line, third line, and I think he could fit with most any player. The only problem with him, and I do remember this, is that Dave, he's not a playoff performer. He's been a bad playoff performer. He has 30 points in 82 games. So he would be a helpful, useful player across the board for 82 games, like absolute net positive over 82 games. But, if I want to be fair to what I said a little bit earlier, the Devils acquired Niederreiter, depending role, if he's going to play second line or third line. Dave, he could have 0 or 1 points in a 7, like that would very much be on the table of him having like 0 or 1 points against the Rangers in a 7-game series or something like that. So I like the fit. Give me a two-way type who I can trust kind of all around the rink and is going to finish chances and is going to produce and is used to playing against pretty good competition. But that might be the only drawback, is that, yeah, he will be very helpful in a lot of spots with a lot of different line mates, but he could be an absolute dud in the playoffs.
Well, give me fuel, give me fire, give me Niederreiter.
Yes.
I like the player. I do. I've always kind of wanted him. I thought he was someone who, really fits somewhere in your middle six well. That being said, yeah, your points in the playoffs are certainly valid. The fact that he's not super expensive, and I think he fills a role somewhere, like it's a more, at least for the regular season, like it's a positive. He's going to give you some production.
He's a better guitar if you want to replace him.
Like if you look at it and say, like, am I grabbing him now because it's one of the replacements for next year?
Definitely.
That's kind of how I'm looking at it with him. And again, I maybe he is bad in the playoffs. Who knows this year? But I would. The only thing is, like, what are they going to want for him? Is Nashville actually rebuilding?
Are they even selling?
I don't know. I mean, you know what it is? Like, I think there's 9 teams for 8 spots in the West this year. Actually, no, probably 10. It's what the teams that are in now. So Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado, Vegas, Seattle, Kings, and then right behind them is Edmonton. Then Minnesota's the last seed right now. Well, Calgary is tied with them in points. Nashville has a game in hand on Minnesota and 2 games in hand on Calgary, and they're on 54 points. So in theory, Nashville's still right there.
Sure. Yep.
My guess is, especially because like St. Louis is going to sell and they're out of it, and then Vancouver, Sharks, Coyotes, Ducks, and Chicago don't matter.
Yep.
So I'm going to guess that Nashville is going to say, well, maybe we think we're the best team who's not currently in the spot right now. I'd be shocked if they do get rid of people, and if they do, my bigger guess would be they're going to want a good price for it. They just feel like they don't want to face the music, unfortunately.
Sure, of course. Yeah, David Poile. I mean, talk about a guy who's
lost.
Yeah.
or they'll give him up for nothing and then trade for somebody else and try to make the playoffs.
Correct.
Like, they are a rudderless ship right now.
Yep. Very good GM once upon a time. It has faded fast on him. Okay, I want to move to the next guy. Jesse Puljujarvi of the Edmonton Oilers, who is he an RFA at the end of this? Again, it may not matter with the way I want to discuss him here, but he's a winger. He played a bunch with McDavid last year. He hasn't as much this year. Like last year, the last 2 years, his offense and defensive play driving numbers were very good. The finishing has sucked. The finishing has sucked this year. Again, the defense is still good, but now offensively he's a black hole. Like I know a lot of fans wanted him last year, Dave. Again, here's a player who, like, he's not a top 6 player. Okay, is he a very niche third line fit for an NHL playoff team? Yes, I think that's fair. Um, he's probably making a little bit too much money. Okay, you would have control over him. The problem is his best attribute is that, okay, he's a good forechecker. So fine player. Like I don't think I even want to have to deal with whatever contract raises he's going to get after this. Like even if it costs you, let's say, like a 4th round pick this year, whatever. I don't want to feel like I have to sign him after this year. So personally, I would just avoid him. Like I think he's a third line forechecker. That's it, and he's an expensive one.
Yeah, I no. No.
Nope.
That's it.
Next, let's do it.
Yeah.
Lawson Krause of the Arizona Coyotes, who I guess he has maybe a little bit more term as well. He's
got a lot of term.
Oh my God, yeah, he
Yeah,
is. Okay,
yeah.
never mind. He's not RFA anytime soon. 4.3 million, 4 more years after this. Play either wing. Finishing jumped a lot the last 2 years. Defensively, kind of up and down between good and bad. Although it seems like the offense maybe has broken out this year on him. Interesting player, Dave. Definitely a shit mixer too. You want to talk about someone who could be a good playoff player? I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't take a $4.3 million 4 years after this stand on a player who's still trying to, I would say, find himself a little bit, or just trying to find the consistency to his game. So I think there are a few people who do like him and find him unique, which I would agree with, but probably going to be too expensive or not worth my time for unique and still trying to find consistency.
I mean, I guess from one perspective, you say he's 25 and he'll have 4 more years after this at 4.3, and you say, okay, maybe he is worth close to that, and then you say, okay, you've got cost controlled for a good player, but I don't know if he's really a second liner necessarily.
Can't play either special.
Yeah.
Like no.
I don't know. I think if he had like 2-3 years, maybe you say, okay, he's like a shortish term, cost controlled middle 6 type, but I just don't think he's fine everywhere. I think you need to find a player that is either cheaper and that's the value in them, or they bring specials, or so. Because like Jeff, there's a chance that they're going to need to find a bunch of penalty killers for next year.
Yep.
Like, or even trying to find somebody that might be a power play specialist for next year, perhaps. I don't think Krause brings any of those things to the table enough, especially to have him for that long. Like, again, it's not the high end, but if he's meh for you, that's $4.3 million tied up for a bunch of years where it's like, cool, what are we really getting for this? It's poor bang for your buck, probably.
100%. Yep, I'm with you. Sam Bennett of the Florida Panthers. Now, he may not be available. Same thing as we talked about Reinhart before. He may not be available because the Panthers are, how far back are they? 3 out, a few teams to hop. Not played way more games. Offense is good. Finishing and defense bounce around for him. Good penalty killer. Does take a lot of the top competition. No, probably still a little too expensive for me, Dave. I guess, like, he's probably, maybe he'd be a good second line winger, but again, term and money probably still a little bit too much for a second line player. And then if he's going to be your third line player, how much do you want to actually spend on him asset wise? So
yeah,
like the player, I think he's fun. He's a pain in the ass to deal with. Devils could definitely use a player like him. Probably too much term to make something work in sense for the Devils. And he probably could go missing in a playoff series too.
Yeah, I mean, he was a guy who couldn't figure it out completely in Calgary. There'd be nice spurts, and the finishing was a big issue for him at that point. He was always under expected goal wise, and it's like, all right, when is this guy gonna give you the kind of production you're hoping for? And yeah, he kind of found it on a really high octane Florida team, probably too expensive for my life. Like I think I'd like him better next year, when it's next year and the year after, and you say, okay, if that's a middle six player for us, we're cool with it.
We need to know what the cap. I mean, I said it last year. I don't want to say it again. Like, if there was ever a cap schedule, we could probably do a better show than what we're doing right now, to be honest. But we don't really know.
Every GM is thinking that same thing.
Yep.
How can I do my job when I don't know? Like, how can you legitimately approach this trade deadline without skepticism, because you have no idea what the cap's going to be in 1, 2, and 3 years from now?
Yep.
It's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah.
Teams have, RFAs to sign, and guys coming off ELC deals. You want to punt away all your other stars to sign your young players, because that's where we're headed. I mean, look at the Rangers right now. They've got Miller and Hedl to sign. And as far as anything else goes,
yep,
Hedl might be $8 million, $7 million.
Woo. Pay him.
Sure.
Bennett had 3 points in 10 playoff games last year.
Yeah.
So,
not quite.
Yep. All right. Next. By the way, I want to say I was first on this, because I know it's gotten sexy the last week. I brought it up after the 21 COVID season, and I got screamed at that Andreas Janssen was a better player than him, but obviously that has clearly turned out to not be the case. Adam Henrique of the Anaheim Ducks, who has this year and next year on his contract. It's a lot. It's $5.8 million. Anaheim doesn't have to deal him. They could just, enjoy a pretty good hockey player.
They should.
Next year for sure he will be. They don't feel like they have to force it right now, unless they don't want. I mean, if they want to just fully clean the cap, they could. But again, if you're trading him, you're probably gonna have to eat the $2.7 million. So why not keep him? But listen, I've beat this drum for 2 seasons now. Like, you just know what you're getting with him, and I love that. Like, you want to put him anywhere in the top 9 as a center or a winger, you know he's going to do his thing. He's going to be solid defensively. Dave, we mentioned he'll get to the front of the net. He likes to live there. He scores. He's good for goals. I guess his PK numbers have not been great, but maybe you don't need him for that at this point in his career. I love Adam Henrique. I would love for him to be a fun role player and do some Devils fan fiction here to wrap up everything that's happened from 2012 on and come lift the cup here. But maybe we could do this discussion next year when the Devils are looking like he would be obviously a perfect fit for a 3C on this team. Like, he would be tailor-made for this team. Put him out there. Okay, he's got a little shortcomings defensively. Put him with Haula. Yeah, I mean, he would be fantastic. It probably just doesn't work, though, because the money's a little aggressive with a tiny bit of term on it.
Yeah. I think realistically, he probably has more value as a trade next year, just because, for one, are the Ducks going to eat the money for 2 years? Probably not. Or they probably wouldn't love to do that unless they're really getting a good return. I think he'll have more value as just a straight rental next year. Yeah, I think he'd be a nice 3C. I'm not locking up, if it ends up being the 5.8. I'm not locking up $5.8 million in Adam Henrique for next year. There's all of your wiggle room in terms of what you want to do defensively, what you want to do, finding another, if it's not Meier, who else is the next target. I get the fit. He's still an effective player, but I think I'd have to do it next year, not this year.
Yep, 100%. If we can, we'll try and not do a lull moment here, but Josh Anderson of the Montreal Canadiens, who
funny. I put all these on the background here. They're not like they're the background is like it's one file. Every single other player, I had a space in between the underscore in between their name just to make it easier to read quickly. He is the one player that I forgot to do that. So maybe it's like in the back of my head, I just wanted to
Can you put a clown emoji over his face?
Sure. I can probably
you don't have to. Like yeah, okay. So the only people who have linked him are, basically the Montreal
idiots.
media. The Mediats, yes. The Montreal Mediats. To be honest, I actually like Josh Anderson from a fun, unique depth role player standpoint. I think he's different than a lot of guys. He can play with jam. Unfortunately, He's
You're
not
gonna
good.
get to use a Elliot and Jeff term. You're gonna get radioed, and someone's gonna clip
Yeah,
you
perfect.
saying,
Clip me.
"I like
Yeah,
Jeff Anderson," and someone's posting it. Like, in
perfect.
fact, if you're the water carrying idiot Montreal media, and you can clip me on
Yes.
this too. Screw yourselves.
Marco D'Amico will grab this
Yes,
for sure.
I would love to see someone because like apparently we're big in Canada now. It's
That's it.
because
I'm a star
whatever.
maker, baby.
Yeah, I would love to see. I'd love to see someone radio on that. That'd be so
Yeah.
good.
Josh Anderson's a fine depth role player. Unfortunately, he's being paid like a second line player for a longer time,
Mhm.
and it's not like he's not old, but he's also not super young. He's 28 years old. Um, so I mean, the Devils are just not doing this. Like half retained, okay, I could think about it, and I would still be thinking about it for like I don't know a late round pick, and even then, I don't know if I even want probably an extra or a rich extra million on there for a guy who's basically a role depth player. So
Yeah.
I'll give him credit. I think he is unique from a lot of different NHL players, but yeah, no one's doing this. Sorry.
No, 5 years at 5.5. There's no way Montreal's eating half for 5 years.
Right.
So if you want to say that he's coming with the cap hit or very close to the cap hit, there is no shot I am giving a 28-year-old who, yeah, he scores a little bit, but doesn't bring you a ton outside of that. I mean, look, the defensive numbers are terrible. He's not a power play guy. Okay, he's a penalty killer. All right. Not much of a passer. He's literally a finisher. And it's not like the Devils have a third line center where you think, oh, he'll get him the puck. They don't really. 5.5 for 5 million. No, as far as I'm concerned, yes, I know he's had a decent. My dog's having a nightmare right now. He's like barking in his sleep. It's
Josh Anderson
hilarious.
talk.
Yeah,
He's
seriously, of
over it
course.
too.
He heard the name Josh Anderson, and his dog mind is going crazy. So
Over
I'm
it.
with you, bro. I'm with you, Charlie. You can't possibly make this trade. Like, you can make the case to me. Okay, I know he scored a few goals this year. That his contract is a negative at this point. That like, you could tell me that Montreal has to give up something sooner than Montreal's getting anything of value for a contract on a guy who's going to be probably 29 at some like, so he's going to be 30 for most of the deal, and he's making $5.5 million. You do not win in the playoffs and win a Stanley Cup by signing mid-tier guys to $5.5 million contracts. You don't.
Yep.
The water carrying for this has been absolutely ridiculous. This is not like, okay, maybe if he still is good in 4 years, maybe we can revisit him being a rental, and he can
Great.
lift the cup as a fourth liner on the Devils. Okay, how
Great.
about that?
Love it.
No, absolutely not. Stop with the bullshit. Have a little respect for yourself in the game.
Yes.
Let's not act like Josh Anderson with that contract is anything of value. Stop.
Get him. Love it. All right, that's enough Josh Anderson talk. Maybe
Please.
forever. Maybe forever. Nick Schmaltz.
You say forever, but you know it's coming back soon.
Yeah, probably tomorrow. Whatever.
Nope. No, someone will find out about this for sure,
Sure.
and we'll be in the mix tomorrow.
That's how it goes. Nick Schmaltz, who's in Arizona. He's at 3 more years after this one at 5.9 million.
Yeah.
26-year-old player, right wing center. I think he's played mostly wing though. His impacts are really good across the board for the most part. Offense is really good. The finishing has been good the last 2 years. Defense has always been fine, slightly below average. It went crazy this year. So in some theory, you'd be buying it as absolute highest. Dave, I'll be honest. Like when I look through the cards, like nothing, not a lot surprised me from a lot of these guys. Like everything we saw, I'm like, it makes sense. Seems right. Looks okay. I was actually surprised how good his numbers across the board look. Now, I still don't think he's a first line player.
No.
He feels like a tweener between a second and a third line player. I don't know if the volume, point producing has always been there for him. So good for him. And he's made some money. Like I think his career got off to a little bit of a slow start too. So good for him. He's doing pretty well for himself. But Arizona should probably just keep a pretty good young controlled player because it would be you're not getting the return you think you are for said player.
Yeah, he's good. Like I think the money is too high on him.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a little less and a little less term also I'd feel a little bit better. Like we talk about the 6 million basically for 3 more years. That's all your wiggle room. Is Nick Schmaltz making you a contender? I know the Fancies are pretty good with him, and yeah, he was 59 points in 63 games last year, and he's 28 points in 35 games this year. 11 goals this year, 23 last year. Is he somebody that arguably, when he goes to a team that's not a joke, like Arizona has been for the last few years, could he get an uptick in scoring, and maybe that's supported by good analytics? Perhaps. I just don't know if he's worth um the number, and also like you're probably going to pay a pretty good price for him because he's
Oh
signed
yeah.
for a bunch of years.
Yeah.
That being said, you can make the case to me that there's the underlyings and actual production for him. You could say to me, you could convince me if they did trade for him tomorrow that this is a player that should be a point per game player on the Devils. That being
Sure.
said, I think it's too expensive for my
Yep.
taste.
I would agree with you. Next player, and it might be a quick conversation, but an interesting one. And that's Gustav Nyquist, who's playing with the
Yes.
Columbus Blue Jackets. I have interest in him from the standpoint of one certain lane. It's really not as a player, Dave. Defensively, he's not a good player. Finishing is good. Okay driver. He's 33. Like, this is all going to jump off quickly. Now, he's injured with something. Apparently, the attractiveness of him is that he's going to be injured long enough to be back for. He'll be back for the playoffs.
Oh, I see.
Again, now who's
Yeah.
Again, you never know with Yarmo. He, that could all be posturing. Like, he could be done for the next 5 months. I would have no idea. But
Mhm.
the idea is that you acquire him and then he sits around. You have his LTIR money, and then he could play for you game one, or you don't even have to play him because there's no cap rules in the playoffs. So, Dave, from a standpoint of him being a devil on the ice, I don't actually have much interest in. I do have an interest, however. I'm curious what the arms race is for that. Is get him, stack that $5.5 million LTIR money, and keep opening up your options here. Um, so I have interest in that. I would love to know what I'm hoping we get that soon in the next few weeks here from one of the insiders of what the asking point is for Nyquist, because I think Nyquist alone is more interesting of LTIR money than he is an actual player. So I have interest in him
Mhm.
from that standpoint.
Yeah, I'm sure someone's going to try that. I mean, why not?
Definitely.
Uh it's a loophole, and I know we killed Tampa for it, but as far as I'm concerned,
Hey,
if they get to win a cup because of that, why can't somebody else? Why can't the
yeah,
Devils do that?
yep,
I understand as soon as the Devils do it, they'll find a way to close it the year after. So
yeah,
so maybe now is not the time to do it. You got to wait for like the really the year we think we're going to win a cup or something.
mhm.
Save that Devils detraction, or whatever you're going to call it. But the one reason why I'm interested in Gus Nyquist is simply because I want to talk about how great he was with Tatar, because there's so many people that
Okay,
hate
yeah,
Tomas Tatar, and the two of them were really good together in Detroit. That the idea of the two of them playing together, like with Holla or something, which is a line that I guess like everyone would collectively hate
oh my
pretty much.
gosh, the hate line.
I would just love to see him and Gus and Tatar just go off together. It would just kind of be funny. So like I guess I want
You want him
Nyquist
for the memes?
ironically. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
sure.
He is my meme pick of this entire thing. So, but you probably have a better you probably have a better lane with the LTIR thing. But in terms
Sure.
of actual player, whatever. It doesn't move
Yeah,
the needle either way.
he's pretty close to washed at this point, I would say.
Yeah,
I don't think
he's done.
that's.
I'm interested to see what you have to say on this next guy.
Yeah, let's bring him up. Oh, did we skip someone? Did I
Did I?
had someone another
Oh,
note
my
from?
bad. I
It's
did.
okay.
I
It's okay.
did. Okay. Well, I'm interested to see
Let's
what
do
you.
Lars Eller.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I guess we can switch, right? We don't have to go by the
Yeah,
list.
I haven't heard. I haven't thought. Honestly, I haven't thought much about Lars Eller basically since he scored the cup-winning goal in 2018. He's a guy. He's going to play. He's going to take
He's a
the
guy.
ice. Um, he'll leave it all out there for you. He's what, 33, center, 3.5 million, one per. Numbers kind of bounce around on him from his play driving stuff. Like COVID year, he was awesome. Uh, everything rocketed down last year. Now it's bounced here. So this is probably his final form. Like this season, he's defensively a tick above average. He's, I would say, close to bad offensively, and he's not much of a finisher. But he is a very good penalty killer. That standpoint. Not that anyone gives a fuck, but I'm curious what his face-off numbers are this year. 3.5 million. David, if you're looking for maybe a value buy here, like I think we've tried to pinpoint like really useful players. Now you can bring Lars Eller in here. Now is he a 3C, a 4C, whatever? Half retain, and again, I don't know if Washington's selling. They're probably not. We could probably stop this conversation here, but let's have it out. Like a $1.7 million insurance center who's got playoff experience. That sounds about right for a guy you'd spend a late round pick on if maybe you don't love the price points of everything else. So I've got time for him, but I would say he's, kind of down the list a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I've always liked him. He just feels like a very professional.
Yep. That's the word.
Not flashy, but effective 3C. He's a penalty killer. I just feel like he's someone that you put him in there and like he's the offensive equivalent or the forward equivalent of the minutes eater that never does anything special, but like you can throw him back there and he's just going to be fine,
Yep.
That being said, Washington is trying to make the playoffs here, right? I mean,
Yep.
if anything, they're going to be adding. I do like this player probably more than other people do, but
Sure.
I don't think Washington's trading him.
Yep. Yeah, they're
if anything, the Devils can consider, maybe he's the really cheap because he's kind of almost at the end guy that you bring in to try to fill your bottom six next year.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, as a free agent, yeah, definitely. Probably and cheaper than whatever he's making now. Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. He could be that guy. All right, next guy, Sean Monahan, who has come back. I can't remember how many games he played last year. I'm surprised he even has a card. I thought he was torched like all of last year. I guess he's doing okay for himself. His defensive numbers have always been steady. Like there was hope for him early in his career. He was going to be an offensive player. I know you and I, Dave, we both liked him as a two-way type a bunch of years ago, but it's gotten bad for him offensively. The finishing numbers aren't there. Now the offense has ticked up a lot this year. Is that actually him being healthy and he's 27 and his hips are good, or 1 year, one time a number going up for him? So I'm curious to see where he goes. The problem probably is, Dave, is that he's still finishing out that long deal he signed in Calgary. So even at 3.2, you're kind of taking a stab at something here. Worth a call, I would say. But maybe you could probably find someone better. I know he can play the wings, he can play center. I'm curious of him from a NHL fan perspective. I don't know about perhaps a Devil perspective.
He's
his body could give out on him at any point again.
Yeah, I mean the thought was he was like done pretty much. I don't know. Right. I think he's way down the list, and it's not like he's cheap either. Like you're gonna probably still have to move something out, even retained with him. I think, depending upon where they end up with like LTIR stuff or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that have a lot higher than Sean Monahan, honestly.
Yep, fine enough. Let's move on to Andreas Athanasiou. I don't know. Is he a King? Is he a Canadian player? I don't know where he is, honestly. I'm dead serious. He's always a Blackhawk. Okay, of course he is. So
that's why you don't know, because he's basically been nowhere all year.
Yeah, Blackhawk and a Black Hole. Him and Domi, I think, signed like identical deals. So offensive numbers are pretty good. He's always been a poor defensive player. Doesn't really play either special for the most part. Fine player from a unique depth perspective. Retained, I could consider him. Could you, if you had to ship out Wood, could you get him coming back the other way and you wanted to really replace that player? Maybe the Devils would have some interest in him in that regard. But down the list, I wouldn't hate him, Dave. I guess that's what I'll say. But wouldn't spend. He's like a 6th or 7th round pick. Probably not even at all.
Do you know what I mean? This is very. Do you know that he is Greek and Guyanese?
Not surprised he's Greek. I actually.
Well, yeah, I mean the name kind of gives it away. But...
Well, actually, I would not even have known that from that. His face certainly gives that away.
Yeah,
I don't know. A guy
he's also a vegan, and he has a famous WAG, LPGA player Nelly Corda. So interesting things.
Would not have known her.
Yeah, he'd be an okay rental. Like I understand you'd be aiming higher, but I do think he can give you something offensively as a third liner, or maybe even the guy that can fit as a third guy in a top 6 role. I'm not breaking the bank for him. He's not at the top of my list, but if they made this trade for him, I wouldn't hate it. I guess is where I'm at with him.
Sure, fair enough. All right, why don't we get to one of the last guys of we'll call them the
Yeah.
mid 6-ish guys.
2.5 hours, by the way, so we're gonna have to rip through these defensemen.
Yeah. Anthony Duclair, who I guess he's been injured for the Panthers all year. We're actually using his 21-22 card. Like, offense has always been great. Finishing up and down, more good than bad. Defense, mostly not there. Decent power play player. He's got a little term on his contract, too.
Mm-hmm.
Again, probably too much of a wild card to spend big money on because you don't know he's going to come back. I mean, especially for this playoff run. Like, in theory, you'd probably be adding him more for next year, which I don't think is an issue. And again, Florida's probably not dealing anyone. So,
I think he's the Miles Wood trade.
what do you mean?
Give them a guy who's expiring, and then see if you can get something out of him.
Okay, be a little creative.
Yeah,
I like it.
I've always been a big fan of Tony Dukes. He's I think he's got a more offensive skill than he gets credit for sometimes.
Can you LTIR him and do if he's a LTIR playoff guy?
Yeah,
too,
I guess
got
he's
time for
another
that.
one. Yeah,
and
that's
actually
true.
be a useful player next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's someone that at least at $3 million for 1 year, you could say he's worth it. As does he fit somewhere into your bottom 6 for next year? Perhaps.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, not at the top of my list. I do like the player though.
Sure. Okay, why don't we move into the defenseman, Dave, and we'll probably spend a decent chunk on the first few guys here. A lot of people, I think, Dave, if you go comb through our mentions, one of the guys who we got pinged a lot about was Luke Shen. We got pinged a lot about a lot of guys because we said to send us everything, but probably close to, I don't know, way more than a half dozen sent us Luke Shen's name. And maybe it was because we just watched him play the other night. Now, he played on that. I can't remember how big his role was on that Tampa team. He played on one of the Tampa teams that won the Cup. I don't know if he was. I don't think he was an every night guy. I think he played some of those games. He's probably being talked too much into a huge price point for that guy, and he's specifically a rental. Like, when I'm looking, we can discuss this further. Like, I'm looking for legitimately a guy who's, I can just throw in there and feel like he's going to do the job. Unfortunately, the Canadian media is going to try and make him the Ben Sherratt light, it sounds like. So he can't kill penalties. He's obviously not a power play player. He's okay. This year everything's dropped off. Maybe that's a Vancouver thing. Like, okay, he's a solid hand defensively. But if you're a solid hand defensively and you can't penalty kill, like the double penalty killers are who, Dave? It's Siegs, Marino, and Brendan Smith. Am I missing anyone? Not really, right? And Graves.
Good. Yeah.
So I mean, maybe they don't need him to. So maybe from that standpoint, David is without an injury, maybe they don't need him to. Even with an injury, maybe they still don't need him to. Sure, I've got time for him, but I feel like his price is going to be pumped up because Canada.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess he's gonna go for like a third when the reality is, or even a second, perhaps.
Sure.
As like the, oh my god, I haven't done anything. Oh, Shen's won a cup, and he's a name, and
and he takes a ton
established,
of penalties too.
and he has no more. You're not attached to him beyond this year. I think he's gonna end up a second or a third. I wouldn't pay that for him. That being said, yeah, if you're looking for somebody that has done it before and you could throw him into the deep end if 2 guys got hurt for a game or something, yeah, I think Shen has been there before in that regard. He plays on a team that doesn't play any team defense, so it's kind of hard to really.
If he could kill penalties, Dave, or didn't take penalties, and just looking off the card here and knowing what he does, from a physicality, closing off guys from the board standpoint, and more so of an in zone defender than a transition defender, I could have time for him. Like, I haven't really decided who I would really like them to see get. Like, if he did one of those things better, he'd probably be a very, very good choice. But you could certainly.
Yeah, you probably need the guy who you're bringing in defensively to be a penalty killer, because if he's playing or having to play big minutes, you've probably lost penalty killers.
Yep, probably. Okay, so that's the Luke Shen. Well, let's keep going through the list here. So, Vladislav Gavrikov. Now he's
Speaking
getting
of
pumped
penalty
up.
killing.
Yep. Very good penalty killer. Plays tough competition. I think for me, as much as I like look him up. Like the defensive numbers are probably better than the last 2-year dip he's had. I don't know about his game that much offensively. Like my guy's got to be when they do get a defender, like got to be a surefire. Hey, he's good defense, like absolutely good defensively. Because again, the Devils' offense I think will go at whatever point.
Mhm.
You can't even try and shoot for Dougie insurance or anything like that. I don't think that's just not worth the value standpoint. You're literally just looking for a body who's going to come in and be adequate in a depth role. I don't know. You have a feeling on him, Dave? Like I think there's a few metrics there
Excuse me.
that kind of are a little bit up and down on him. If you look at a McCurdy chart
Yeah.
or what was the other one? Maybe one of the evolving hockey bar charts.
Mhm.
Don't love him as much. So he's kind of interesting. The problem is that he's getting pumped up as the guy. I think someone, Frank Saravelli or someone wrote Savard return, which is a first and a third, and you're not getting term on this guy.
No.
So like, I think Yarmo's just going to price himself out on this guy.
Sure.
Probably.
Yeah, because I think Yarmo's trying to, you know, look, all the talk, oh, look, he's back. He did such a great job. Yeah, your team sucks. I hate Yarmo. Yarmo is the most annoying. Like he always gets all
I
these
love that
pats
you
on his
hate him.
back
Yes.
because he always gets all this like great press and it never actually works out. It's like the same thing as like all the times when I've gotten arguments with people and like face value hasn't played out yet, and I'm like, oh, what happened 4 months from now? And that was one of the ones that everyone was killing me for ripping Yarmo. What the hell have they done since all of those moves? They've sucked. They've driven their franchise into the ground. That being said, they're probably going to get Bedard, and then everything will be okay. But look, his defensive numbers were better when they were a functioning hockey team. They've since went down. Part of that is probably because like they don't have enough healthy bodies even defensively to be good. I think he's a better defensive player. Like he's a decent penalty killer, and I think he brings you something offensively. I think this is the kind of player that if you can get him for not a stupid price, which may not happen, this is a guy you could give me the idea of if you're looking for the next Graves, this is the kind of player that
Sure.
maybe you get him for 3 years, 3.5 million or something like that. Could be a little more than that,
He's probably
perhaps.
gonna be pricey.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who has the money, but this is one where I would, if the price is there, I would consider it. I think he's a pretty good player.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably gonna get a first and a third from him. Someone's probably gonna do it.
I wouldn't do that.
Yep, with
Not
you.
for a rental.
Sure.
The Devils can't be giving up first for rentals. Like, if you want to give up a first as part of something that's a big, a future deal, absolutely, I'm all for it. But you can't be giving up futures for perhaps 4 games of playoffs,
Yep.
or more, hopefully more.
100%. All right, why don't we talk about the next guy? It's a St. Louis Blues defenseman. Is it Mikko Mikkola or Nico Mikkola? I forget.
Nico.
Nico Mikkola. Okay, listen, if
Yes.
we can add another Nico, why wouldn't we do it?
Corner the markets on Nikos.
Yeah. So as ugly as the chart looks, like defensively always been right around 50%. The offense, fluctuates in poor territories. Pretty good penalty killer. Plays normally lower competition. Honestly, Dave, I think this might be my lane niche of guy of where I don't think the cost is going to be big. He's not good to the point of it's going to raise his price. Like he's an adequate hockey player playing a third pair, making 1.9 million. I think he's a thick boy too. I'm gonna look that up real quick. I think I've actually got time for him just because I think the fit is right. Like he could replace Brendan Smith. He could be Brendan Smith insurance. He would certainly, I would say, would fit the what we said of be better than Ball and Ohachuk. So I've actually got quite a bit of. I mean, 6'5". You want to? I mean, if that's a lane that Fitz likes to dip his toe in, 6'5", 209 pounds. I actually think he makes quite a bit more sense than everyone. Even like if you're watching on the stream, like the card doesn't wow you, but it looks okay. And I think for me, that's been my mindset going into this is find an okay defenseman who really is break in case of emergency. What do you think about Nico Mikkola?
I would throw him in the pile of if you want a depth defenseman for a 4th or 5th round pick, he'd be one of the guys. That's not ahead of them, not behind, just another useful body that would be depth.
Yep, fair enough. Why don't we get to 2 guys you wanted to bring up here? A couple Blackhawk defensemen. Now, one of them is the first guy we'll talk about is Jake McCabe, who his analytics have been great. It says he's a very strong player. He's 2 more years after this for $4 million. He's 28. Apparently can play either side. Like his car is. You want to talk about consistent players? This is it. Now he's had some injuries here and there. He's basically never played an important game in his life, which is one of the few drawbacks I have on him. I want to hear what you have to say first, Dave, because I have a tough time seeing how this works, but I do have an idea for it. So I want to hear you.
Yeah, he was bad last year. Analytically, he was bad last year. He was coming off of knee surgery, so that's probably part of it. Which is why I didn't when they were trying to, people were mentioning him for last year. I'm like, no, I don't want him next year because I think it takes a full calendar year to get over a knee injury. And I guess maybe that's shown. To your point that he's never played an important game, like I understand that he's a good shot suppressor and he's been a really solid defensive defenseman, doesn't really give you all that much offensively, maybe not the best penalty killer, but like he's one of those guys that's just like, yeah, he's good 5-on-5 at limiting shots. And I guess the question is like, if you put him in a top 4 in a playoff series, how effective actually is he? I don't know if I can honestly answer that yet. He hasn't played that kind of hockey. In some ways it's like, okay, his style is better, trying to be one of those guys that just keeps it simple on a bad hockey team, as opposed to what is he going to, how is he in big moments, on a good team. I don't know that because he's played for absolutely horrific hockey teams his whole career.
Yep.
That being said, he's got 2 years left at $4 million. I know you've mentioned, and I tried to ask you for names.
Yeah.
When you were, they'll just find the next Graves, and my answer was cool. Like, there's got to be somebody out there. Is this that kind of player that you could go and say $4 million? You don't really love that. It might be a little higher than you'd like, but at the very least, it's cost controlled defensive defenseman for 2 more years.
Yes. If you're kicking it back to me here, Dave, what I would say is this: is if that's something you want to do, and I've got time for it, I think the way you do that is you essentially swap Graves and a pick for McCabe, and essentially you're spending the pick to buy years of a defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
Now they get an expiring guy. I mean, I guess you could just straight add him, but yeah, if you want to add him. And then obviously it's an easy way to let Graves walk because then you've got 2 more years after it. Yeah, from that standpoint alone, I've got time from that. Now that maybe that was me overexerting a little bit, but you might have to make the money work across the board. Like they're not going to eat on McCabe. Like they're definitely not.
No, they want to be free of it, and you go deal with it.
So I think in theory, Dave, if I'm taking the bull by the horn here and assuming what I think, like. You'd probably have to swap Graves back for him. You'd probably have to make the money work a little bit so it's not chaotic if you're going to do other stuff. So theory on that would be is McCabe's your 4 or your 2 lefty. You've gotten 2 extra years. You've already figured out that top 4D spot for 2 more years. And Graves is already out of the picture. You don't even have to think about him. So I think that's the only way it works.
I don't know enough of him in terms of actually seeing him do it on a good hockey team in a big spot to tell you he's an actual top 4 on a good hockey team.
100%. That's
that
fair.
Being said, I think he's somebody that you'd have no problem with being a bottom pair moving forward, especially if you want to say that the Devils and why this gets tricky defensively moving forward here is that you might have a Luke Hughes and or Simon Nemitz who are good, but you're still having to go out of your way to shelter them a little bit. That you're going to you need another defenseman there that can truly eat minutes and be a shot suppressor. Maybe that's the kind of player that works there. The money's a little bit expensive, but again,
if you put him with the right side,
but that's probably what you're paying anyway in the open market next year.
Yes.
So, and also the idea of that he's only going to have 2 years left next year. Like if he's not as good as you'd hope, it's not going to kill you. But in the same regard,
you can still trade him.
Probably is the type of person that you'd want, knowing that you're probably losing 1 or 2 defensemen next year that are veterans, and you're going to need penalty killers. I know he's not the best penalty killing numbers, but I don't know. This is an interesting one, Jeff. I think my hope would be I just trade them the Miles Wood contract back, and,
Okay,
and
sure,
that's how
sure.
it works. And
Yep.
maybe you can get them to eat if you need to. Maybe they'll eat 200,000 on it or something like that. I don't
That's
know.
fine.
But this is interesting. Again, I don't know if he's a top 4, but I think it's one where, I kind of yelled at you at one point of find me names for the extra guy.
Patience and flexibility is my target.
Yeah,
Yes,
maybe this is one. Again, I don't know, but I think he's an interesting player, Jake McCabe.
What do you think it costs to get him though? That's my concern. Like his numbers say he's legitimately top 4.
Can you give up 2 seconds maybe and
maybe
and another, like, could you give them a second in Shakir Mukhamadullin? Like a little bit down the rung defensive prospect, like that kind of, I don't know. They might want more than that, and maybe they're right to want more than that.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I just like it's interesting to see who goes for him, and my guess is there are going to be teams that are involved in him that aren't good. And that you're going to have a team that says, hey, this guy suppresses shots. We can get him at a decent number for a couple of years. Maybe, we're a bad defensive team. Let's try to get better. I mean, like Vancouver could be trying to get him still.
Yeah. I mean,
one guy should be.
One guy we'll talk about in a second that we'll kind of breeze right by, who plays for the Red Wings. I mean, that's basically what you're looking for. I mean, we'll cruise by him in a second. Okay, let's leave it on there for McCabe, but you want to move right to the other side of the D and talk about Connor Murphy, who's right-hand D, 29. He's got 3 more years left after this. Excellent defensively, consistently very good defensively, which is what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. Plays middle competition, mid penalty killer. Right side, though, trying to peg in a early Sevo replacement. Is that what you're
doing? Maybe.
I guess he's only going to play the right side.
Sorry, was that you throwing it to me?
I'm throwing it to you. Yeah, it's a throw. That was a throw.
Yeah, I think he's even more money and more years, so I think that makes it really tough. Like, do you really want 4.4 for 3 more years for a guy who's already 29? And yes, very solid defensively, but I think that's a little rich for my taste. If this was less money or less years, I think I'd be all about it. That's a lot for a guy that, like, yes, it fills a need, but then I don't know. That's tough with the money there. And they're probably still going to want more from him than they should, because honestly, if you're a team that's like one defensive defenseman away and you have the ability to make it work cap wise, that's a good player. So, yeah, 3 more years at 4.4. That's a little expensive for my taste.
Yep, probably can't work. Real quick, if we can cut in, sounds like Frank Saravalli is reporting that Vladimir Tarasenko is off to the New York Rangers, as you said earlier.
Oh, there you go.
The Russian club. So be it. So there's maybe it's gonna be. I felt like today was gonna be a shake and bake day too. I don't know why.
Can we? Oh well. So the Rangers have made their move. They didn't get Timo now. I guess that's good, right? We can stop with the self-deprecating Timo to the Rangers.
Yes, no more hate jerking for at least an hour.
But the team that the Devils are probably playing in their first round is now has another legitimate option, and it might push them to being a true third line team now. That's big for them. I'm not the biggest fan of the player, but look, if there's anywhere that's going to make it work, it's a Russian in New York, probably. I mean, if I were him, I would have stayed clear of Panarin in this day and age, personally. I know they're probably friends, but I don't know. I just would stay away from, the person that the Kremlin hates. Maybe I'm overstating that, whatever. That's I know I had said this before, Jeff, of when the dominoes start in the Metro, what's going to happen.
Yep.
The Rangers, your probable first-round opponent, just got better.
Oh yeah.
What do the Devils do now?
Yep.
Do you know what the return was? Was it probably like a 7th rounder in 2057?
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll keep an eye on that. We can kind of do some live-ish stuff here.
I'm sure they gave up nothing of importance because it's just how the Rangers work.
Yeah. All right, let's keep an eye.
Okay.
Do some live-ish stuff. It is a live show after all.
There's been too much going on today. You know what it is? We're going.
Should we just do a live show every day and then tons of people will listen?
Guarantee us doing a live show guarantees fireworks.
Yeah. Oh God. All right. Let's keep
If
it
we
going.
stay on long enough, maybe we'll get the Meier trade.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would raise
Okay.
everyone's
Instead,
hopes.
let's talk about Nick Seeler.
Yeah, Emily Kaplan just reported that a lot of teams are calling about him. I actually was not going to put him on until we got to last night, but what Queen Cap says goes. So uh, everything shot up this year in a strange year. He's 29 years old. He's on a contract for next year for 0.8 million. So I could see why teams um, are interested in him, and they should be to some extent because the numbers are pretty decent. The jump is great. But you want to talk about journeyman defensemen. And you're seeing this a lot now too, Dave, is that extra year of contracts at certain price sometimes are more important than the actual talent of the player. Like, I don't know what Nick Seeler is. Is he a 5? Is he a 6? Is he a 7? Is he having the greatest year of his life because dumb? I don't know. So, again, I would probably want a little bit more of a pro if I'm going to make this trade, but I can see the fascination solely from the contract standpoint. What do you think about Nick
Yeah,
Seeler?
if you think there's anything there, he's cost nothing for next year. So if put it this way, if you want to go get Timo Meier and pay him and Bratt $9.5 million each, and you think that Nick Seeler is a way to have a good defenseman that costs nothing because you don't have extra money, there you go.
You can bury him. He's under the 1.0
Mhm.
whatever million it is. You can legitimately bury him if he sucks.
Yeah. From that standpoint, maybe you do it. Again, I haven't watched enough of him or
Sure,
the Flyers
100%.
this year to really tell you enough about him. I mean, the numbers are pretty good, and they say he's a solid defensive player. I'd throw him in the Nico Mikkola category of if you want depth, he's a guy that you do, but you're not jumping for joy if it happens.
Perfect. Do you want to go back to a former Flyer, Gossesbear?
Oh yes, we forgot about
Okay.
him. I don't think I have much to say about him, but
Yeah. It's pretty consistent to what he's been. Good for him. He's still making $4.5 million this year. Again, I don't think the Devils need an offensive player. They need a defensive player when it comes to that corpse. So good for him. Looks like he's doing well. He'll probably get some more money and contract stuff for him. His finishing is awesome. I guess he's paying a ton of minutes for Arizona too. So he found a situation where he could go and pump himself up. We'll see if
Yeah.
anybody follows suit. But again, need a reliable defensively player, and he
Mhm.
is consistently not a good defensive player.
No.
So doing well for himself, just not a fit for the 22-23 Devils.
Yeah, if you need power play help, go get him. Absolutely. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's been really solid. I think he has sort of righted himself over time, even though I know that the fancies don't love him for this year. I mean, you're looking at the percentile stuff, but um, I think he's a good power play guy. Not someone the Devils should be interested in, but I'm trying to think who's a team that's like very good that doesn't have a good power play. I know there's a couple that are kind of in that realm, but yeah, so someone should go make a play for him. It shouldn't be the Devils though.
Yep. Let's
Sorry.
stay in Arizona. Let's go to Jacob Chikrin now. Again, this is probably not a fit for the Devils. We could talk about him real quick.
Yeah, we can start to go quickly through some of
Yeah,
these
the
guys
asks
here.
have been crazy on him, like
No.
multiple firsts and stuff like that. And again, when I see the cards, I don't just scream line go up good to try and read a trend or two. Like he's just up and down. Like I just don't know what he is. Like he gets his points and all that. Um, he's just not a fit. The Devils' defense is good enough as it is. They actually he just doesn't work from a money
No.
and price standpoint. So yeah.
Like the player, I think the right system. This is a really good hockey player. I think he's been a product of just directionless coaching at times in the past. Just the team not having enough talent. I think Chikrin in the right system, and I don't think they can make it work. But I think Boston would be a great spot for him. Like,
Probably,
just
yeah.
bring another guy that's flawed but has a lot of talent onto a team that has a ton of talent, and can do that. Like, again, I don't think it's going to happen, but I think Chikrin. Also, the Penguins would be a really good spot for Chikrin. I don't know if they can fit him either, but unless maybe they give up a Pedersen in return, which isn't a bad player for Arizona to probably have
Sure.
in the return. But yeah, it doesn't seem to work for the Devils, but someone's going to get the best out of him at some point. Jacob Chikrin. I think there's a much better player than what we've seen from him in the last little bit here.
I need to see the John Klingberg card. If you want to bring it
God.
up on 1 year in Anaheim. It's just chaos.
If it
Defense
could
has gotten
go
worse. It's amazing.
go any less, on defense, it would.
It's
It just
amazing.
can.
It was like 1% last year. You can legitimately see the move to 0% this year.
Yeah.
Um, just not the fit.
Mhm.
Again, I think some of that stuff shrinks in the playoffs too. So,
Yep.
and it's a ton of money for a rental,
Yeah. No
and
thanks.
someone probably will pay a first. So, nah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a power play specialist that is dreadful defensively.
Yep.
No thanks. Sorry.
Nobody wanted him last summer, really.
No.
Okay, let's get to more some of the depth names, and these maybe we'll go a little quicker on. Olimata, who I said to someone the
Somehow
other
is
day,
only 28, right?
yeah, maybe it was you. Someone like I cannot believe he's 28. He's
It
playing for the
feels like
Red
he's,
Wings.
you know what it is? He was playing playoffs as like
Yeah.
a rookie, I think.
Yep.
For the Penguins at one point. That's why it feels like so long ago. You
Yep.
know?
Yeah, absolutely insane. 28, 2.3 million rental type. Penalty killing numbers are still good.
Mhm.
Doesn't take penalties. Defense is adequate. Yeah, Dave, he would fit. Probably got to retain on him, but he would fit the.
Mhm.
I need a 6 or a 7 defenseman. He would be in that lane.
I'm kind of mad at ourselves for not discussing former Devils failed Lou defensemen and trying to say if we believe that the player is better or worse than a Skula, essentially, or like like who's like the what's the Mendoza line of
Yes,
acceptable Devils defensive ads, and like is the guy over or above? Like to
I
me,
love
Mata
that.
is in that same mushy middle of like you want depth, cool, yeah. I think good penalty killer. He's been around, been played playoffs before,
Yes.
can hold his own defensively, but nothing more than that.
Yep. Depth ed. Next guy, Patrick Nemeth,
Ugh.
former famous New York Ranger. He's been brutal this year, right?
Yeah.
We can probably move quickly.
No.
He does nothing well. Like he's a 2.5
Wasn't he a
expense.
buyout?
Yeah. He got traded in a first round pick, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, he was one of those bad deals. Yeah, Nemeth does nothing well. He's 30. He's 2.5 million next year too. Like, do
Yeah,
not
no, no.
touch. Do not touch. Next, Dmitry Kulikov. This is what I wanted. Before I started doing some research the last few weeks. Like, I'm like, this might be something here. He's 2.3 million. Obviously, old friend, if you will. 31 years old. All the numbers have cliff dive though. Like, he was like I was one of his biggest fanboys in the 21 COVID season, but it went worse last year in Minnesota. A natural drop off, and this year it's been bad in Anaheim. So you got to ask yourself: is Dmitry Kulikov cooked? Are these legitimately because Anaheim can't do anything right? I've got time for him, Dave. But I don't think he's this bad. Like even if you take the Minnesota numbers, what he did in Minnesota was fine. So
Mhm.
maybe you're getting, and again, who knows what everyone's actually looking at here, but maybe you're getting a undervalued player here just because everyone's going to see Anaheim and sucks and probably take a look at his minus number. There's probably some room for some bounce back here. I'm intrigued by him. I don't know if I have the guts or the intestinal fortitude to bring him in. Granted, it's not going to cost much anyway, but he could be a rebound guy here solely because we're not Anaheim.
Yeah, I think he's better than what it's been now. I don't think he's a great player. He's again, I think he's at the top of the group of guys. Throw him in the bucket of
Yep.
sixth, seventh guys. I've just named all those names. I think he's at the top of that list, but he's in that realm.
All right. Let's talk about some guys who won cups with the Blues. One's on a current team, one's
I mean,
not.
the Blues are blowing it up now for sure.
Yeah. So Joel Edmondson's on the Canadians, won a cup with the Blues. 29. He's making 3.5 years next year. That alone might be say fuck that. No. His defense the last 2 years has been piss poor. Offense is pretty steady and consistent though. Can't kill penalties. Can't run a power play. I actually didn't know he was another year after this. So way too many red flags there. So pass.
Yeah, no thanks.
Robert Bortuzzo, who I've always hated and loved to a degree. Like he's such a fuckface. Like no one cross
I love
checks
how
more.
we're on like YouTube and everything today, and you've cursed more in this
Yeah,
episode.
sorry.
Granted, it's also been 3 hours already, but
Yeah.
I just think it's funny. We're gonna get flagged, not
Yeah,
for
he's
kids
such
on
a
YouTube.
nasty piece of crap cross
Yeah,
checker. He's 33, makes a million next year too. So, I mean, you could just bury him. That's not the worst thing in the world. Dave, he's pretty consistent in terms of all three zones. Like I doesn't matter, but then he scored a goal in one of the cup games, important goal in one of the cup games against the Bruins. I think in game 1 or 2. I think maybe he won them game 2. No, that was Carl Gunnarsson. Doesn't matter. Not important. Not a good penalty killer. really, like, his competition percentile is 5th. I don't even know, 5th percentile. I don't even know what to do with that. I think I've talked myself into him more here. Like, he is nasty to play against. Like, and yes, he
Mhm.
does take stupid stick fouls and shit like that. But I'm intrigued for a number of reasons now. Now that I've talked myself into it, like, he is a piece of shit. But if he's our piece of shit, maybe there's something there.
Someone to sacrifice to the gods and take a 15-game suspension just to
Yes,
settle the score.
which you've brought up offline.
Look, I truly believe that you have a player on the Rangers that is going to be hunting for people's heads. You want to
Yeah,
get out in front of that, or you need to be able to respond to that. You can't be caught with no, like it's kind of like you got to wait for the Zerg rush, and if you don't have your defenses built up, there's any StarCraft fans out there, you're gonna get beat just by a couple. Like you need to have someone willing to when they go low, we go lower kind of thing. That being said, yeah, as a defenseman, I think he's whatever. He's always felt like a guy I'm like, oh, I thought he was in the AHL, but like he hasn't been.
yeah,
Sure. From that angle, from your angle, fine. Not really. He wouldn't be at the top of the list for me.
sure. I'm weirdly intrigued by him.
Next
Okay,
guy, though, if you want shit mixing,
yeah,
have I got a Radko Gudas to tell you?
yeah. I guess again, Florida's probably not going to sell, but man, he's just been so. I've liked him for a long time, and I think he's actually reined it in for quite a bit now, Dave. Like
Yeah,
he is not
he
as
actually can
gruesome as he
play
used to be.
now, and like gets minutes and stuff, and
Yep.
doesn't need to be that kind of guy.
You want to talk about consistent both and all three zones? Okay, penalty killer. I guess he's playing third pair for them. I mean, Dave, he would be top of the list for me if you could get him. Now he's right D, so do with that what you will. Maybe someone's got a better, more playing time for him or a better spot for him, but he's not going to be available. But he would be it. Like he's the guy to go target for a depth defenseman. 2.5 million. I mean, yeah, yeah,
If you could get him, sure.
yeah.
I don't know what they're trying to do. Also, I think if they make it clear he's available, everyone would probably want
Probably
to be in on him.
correct.
Like especially because you could eat enough from that, and I think
Oh
most
yeah,
teams could find a way to fit him.
yeah.
Yeah, everyone could benefit depth wise, and even in like their him being a 5 or something, you'd be happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
Would like the player if he's available. They won't be the only suitor.
Sure, 100%. Next, real quick.
This is the most interesting name on this entire list.
Now he's not going anywhere. If you're bringing up the guy I think you're bringing up here, yeah. So Jake Wallman of the Red Wings. So Jay Fresh was doing taking a victory lap on him yesterday, rightfully so. Last year played sheltered minutes in St. Louis, did pretty well,
Hmm.
and I guess St. Louis was done with him or whatever. He got traded to Detroit, and he's exploded this year to be dominant two-way defenseman, playing top competition, good penalty killer. He's 26 years old, so he's probably just going to get himself to free agent simple. He's making 1.1 million.
He's a UFA, so they should trade him because he's going to go get paid.
Okay,
Somewhere.
very
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I mean, he's going to go for a ton of stuff if they are going to trade him.
If you again you're looking for names to be the next guy, this feels like one of them. On a
He
team
is
that's
that guy.
not great
Forget next.
defensively, he's been good offensively and defensively. He's killed
Yeah.
penalties pretty well. This is the guy that if you I would take a shot and give up a first for him.
Wow. I would load them up with a second and a bunch.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, I would
After
do everything to avoid giving up a first. But if you want a guy who you think that you can go and work out a deal with him for 4 times 4.5 or something like that or whatever, and you think that you're getting a guy who's only 26 and is going to blossom into something here, and again, if you're looking for that next guy, go do it. If not, maybe the price is actually lower, Jeff, because he's just a straight rental.
Yeah, I don't know. Talk about a unicorn. Absolute unicorn.
I don't know how to value him necessarily because like this guy looks like he's on the way to being something really, really good, like almost Siegenthaler last year kind of explosion. But at the same point, like, is Detroit going to pay him? Like, if anything, that he probably wants to go see free agency at this point and hope someone gives him a big number. Like,
is he
maybe
definitely
that's
UFA
the thing.
Or is it RFA?
Because
he's probably not played a lot of games. He could still be a.
He is a UFA.
Okay.
So he could go and just say someone's going to give me money, and maybe he's right.
He doesn't
but
have to sign shit. Yeah.
yeah, that you might not be able to sign him anyway. But yeah, okay. So if they're not going to be able to sign him, obviously I'm not giving up a first.
Yeah.
But this is a player that, like, man, Pittsburgh should be all over this, and could be really scary if they get someone like him.
I mean, everyone can fit him. I mean, he'll be
Yeah,
retain
this
you
is a name.
500K. You could do it.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting name.
Yep. We'll see. All right, let's rifle through the next two guys here. Matt Dumba. Dave, this isn't 2019 anymore. It's like he's played a lot of hockey, a lot of hard hockey. It's a bummer that he's only 28, and it seems like he could start to be grinding through the rest of his career here. But Matt Dumba, you and I talking about him, 3-4 years ago. Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he's played a lot of hockey, a lot of tough hockey. His style has led to where he is now, where he's not really he's a net negative both ends of the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And he's at the age of sometimes really good defensemen, Dave Cook at 28. I mean, he's not unsimilar to PK, right? Like PK at some point he was just cooked because you play that much hockey or that much style or whatever it is. Like he's probably just finished at this point.
Yeah. I think there's a better player there, but the Devils can't be the team to figure. Like, you're not going to bring him in. Like, what are you going to do? Bring him in as a rental? Like, Minnesota's trying to make the playoffs. I don't think they're trading him for nothing. They're probably going to lose him because why are you going to give him money at this point? It hasn't worked. I think he's going to have to go take a similar to Klingberg type deal. Either one or two for a lot less, and maybe he's smart going to a good team, like going to.
Could be a great Lightning.
Yeah, like exactly. Go to the Lightning for $1.2 million for a year, play well at Sheltered, and then go off somewhere else, or not go off and just get paid. Not a fit for the Devils. Shame. I still think there's a much better player there, though.
That's fair. I think that's very fair. All right, last defenseman, Dmitry Orlov of the Capitals. Again, Capitals probably aren't dealing anyone, but he's been pretty darn good. Defense slipped a little bit this year. Crazy. He's already 31. Rental does everything really well. Yeah, I mean, he's playing top pair for them. He wouldn't have to play top pair here, so I mean, that alone, you should see some bounce there. Like, yeah, Dave, I've definitely got time for him if they're selling. But I don't know if they're selling.
Oh, so I don't know if this is true because it's Nick Alberga, but sounds like multiple picks and a prospect in the deal, not Offman, aka second, third bullshit prospect.
Yep, I can't wait for this.
Oh God,
we'll have to run back. We'll have to run back the equivalent of what it would have been for the Devils, perhaps.
Oh, like 3 for whatever it would have been. God, the Rangers are just like they don't get injured and they get people for nothing prices. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yep. Pain.
Orlov. I've always liked him.
Yes,
I know he's old, and I think he's going to be one of those guys that he's going to just absolutely nosedive off a cliff at some point. That being said, he's a free agent next year. If you could get him on a low number for a year or two, I think he could be a nice stopgap guy, but not for now. I mean, the Caps are not trading. So.
Yep. All right. Why don't we do some depth forwards, and then we'll wrap it up. We're going to skip the goalies, so I'll be honest. I think we've done the goalies.
But goalies.
Sorry, people asked. We could really quickly. We don't have to bring up the cards then.
I'm kidding. I don't really care.
Okay. Noel Acciari. Where is he even playing right now?
He is a former teammate of Mr. Tarasenko.
Yeah, former Blue, Bruin, Panther. Let me know when you got him up.
Yeah, one sec.
I guess someone mentioned that Vegas has interest in him because he played under Cassidy. Okay, he's Blue currently.
Of course.
Consistent offensively. Defense has always been bad. It's popped this year. Not really much of a finisher. Doesn't really play either special. Definitely plays an edgy game. 1.3 million rental. 30 years old. He can play center. He has played center before. He does both. He'd be an okay player. I think he's a fourth. Like you're not. He's a fourth liner. Like I guess the Blues have him listed as a third liner on this card. Like if you get Noel Acciari, it is solely for your fourth line. Like he can't play he can't play on a third line for me anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone kind of seems to like. I don't know. He's been a water carrying name. I think it's like, oh well, Boston can get him back, and they need depth, so he'd be perfect. And yeah, maybe he is, but I think if you're the Devils, you need to aim a little higher than him.
Yep.
Nice player, nice fourth liner, swing third guy, but again, I don't think he moves the needle enough for the Devils here.
Yep.
Especially because you're literally now trying to say if the Rangers' third line is Trocheck and Kreider, how are you matching up against that?
Yeah. Next is Tanner Jeannot,
A guy.
who I guess is RFA after this year. I think he's one of the few RFA guys we have. He's
Mhm.
0.8 this year. If you have it up quickly, if he's an RFA guy.
Yeah.
Last year got Calder votes because his offense was solid
He banged home a lot of goals last year.
and his finishing was off the charts. And the finishing has plummeted this year.
To be
He's
expected.
right. He's a decent penalty killer. He's a bottom six guy. I would assume, Dave, he's probably just going to cost too much because he's got contract control for probably a very appetizing price. Shit mixer, right?
Hmm.
Likes to mix it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Big boy.
unique player. Again, fourth liner for sure. I don't think
Hmm.
he's a third liner.
No.
What do you think about Jeannot?
I like him a lot in terms of like, is he Miles Wood with gas in the tank left, essentially?
Okay.
Like if like is he what you would hope Miles Wood could be in terms of like gives you something as a fourth liner, can mix it up a little bit, can score. I know his numbers from last year were probably unsustainable. Maybe he's a little bit better than what his numbers are this year, but like again, depth piece. Like you want to tell me okay, you're going to trade him for Wood in a pick or something like to try to move money and get maybe someone who's better than Wood or something. I don't know. I don't know how it would work. He wears my favorite number, so from that regard, I'd love it. But yeah, I do like the player, but again, depth piece. Like
Yep.
not moving the needle either way. They have much bigger concerns than adding essentially a Tanner Jeannot to replace a Miles Wood or something.
Tanners. No Tanners. All right. Nick Bugstag, who is also on the Coyotes. Who I think we did trade shows on, oh God, 2-3 years ago. Those might have been off-season shows, but uh, Nick has always been pretty reliable. Like he's always been pretty solid offensively, pretty solid defensively. The finishing has ticked up for him each of the last 2 years. Now, unfortunately, he doesn't kill penalties. Or he's just not very good at it.
Hmm.
Um, sees good competition. He's making nothing this year. He's a rental, 0.9 million, 30 years old. Dave, I think everyone's going to be after him. He could play center or wing.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be after him. I've got time for it for sure. He's probably costing you a second round pick. So I think if you have an appetite for that, rock and roll.
Yep.
Probably a decent face-off guy if I look it up. So I think he's become the second sexiest name in Devil's Land after Meier in terms of
Hmm.
what would be good. So yeah, check, call. He's probably going to be one of the more expensive guys for what he does.
Yeah.
I would like to add him, but I'm not sure the Devils are going to go for that.
You know what it is? Like if you think the Devils are getting Meyer and you still want like a swing third line-ish center, you could probably fit him still. I mean, you could
Oh
have them
yeah,
eat money, and give up a little more, but like he's basically a free player essentially. His deadline number is going to be nothing. So I think that's what makes him attractive is like he can be your extra ad for any team. So I think they are gonna he's gonna go for more than he should. His contract is what's gonna make him attractive essentially, and also I think he's a good depth defensive player. Penalty killing isn't really there from him, but like he brings it defensively. He's just a solid hand. If you're looking to just be deeper, he adds that to
oh
anybody.
yeah.
I just want him more from the meme category of hearing Devils fans pronounce his name.
Bugstad, is it
Yeah,
wrong? What is
but
it?
Jugstad, I don't know. Just
Oh
hearing people
wow.
who have no idea how to pronounce his name. But no, I do think everyone's gonna be like everybody's gonna
Yes,
want him. Like, how can you not?
everyone
It's
can afford
basically
him. Yeah,
free depth. Yeah, free depth.
yep. And he's pretty good at what he
Like
does. And
someone's gonna have a real bad take on the Twitter.com about someone giving up more than they should for him, but then you're gonna realize that like his contract is what makes him valuable.
yeah, yep. I mean, I didn't even know I can't believe he, like, considering how he's been like always adequate. I can't believe he's making 0.9 million. Like nobody in the
Yeah,
league,
you know what it is?
like prior to this. Makes
Everyone
crazy.
wanted him to be a better offensive guy, and it just hasn't happened. And I think,
He has adapted. Good for him.
mhm,
But yes, I could see why maybe the expectations were so
sure,
low. He seemed like more of a bust when he still could do some things
yeah,
usefully, and
yeah,
nobody noticed that. Good for him. Ivan Barbashev, another blue.
he's
Center
gonna go.
winger.
He's
I don't
going
know what he's
somewhere.
playing. Yeah, probably is.
He's a wing. I think he's much more a wing.
He's definitely a UFA, right? 2.3 million. He just the problem is he's just never done anything well. Okay, he finishes, right? His finishing has always been or has been pretty good the last 2 years. I don't know. I don't. Again, somebody will call for him to be a 3C. I think he's a fourth liner.
Yeah, he brings a little nastiness at times. I think he's someone who always gives you just enough to want more. I mean,
Yep.
he had a really good year last year, and he hasn't done it this year. So I think, and he's had other seasons where he's had decent goal totals where you think maybe there's a 20 goal scorer in there. I think that's what everyone's going to look at and say,
Yep.
okay, he had 26 last year, probably a career year, but he's also flirted close enough other years where you think, all right, maybe on a third line, like I do think he's a third liner. I think he can I think he can get you close to 20 perhaps, but um I don't know. I don't know if he moves the needle enough for me.
No. Nope.
Um, someone's going to go grab him and overpay. My guess is he's going to
Probably.
be a Capital. That's my feeling on him.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe he'll be a Ranger. Who knows? Uh, let's go to Nick Ritchie, who I don't even know who he plays for. Is he a Maple Leaf? Is he a Coyote? For being real, Coyote. Thank you.
It's one of if you don't know where he plays, it's one of three teams:
Yeah.
Anaheim, Chicago, or Arizona.
Yeah. Um, fine player. Offensively, he's somewhat consistent. Defense has drifted. Pretty good finisher. That's been consistent. And he's basically a fourth liner. Um, sure. Again, I think I'm more of the mindset at this point of I'm looking for defensively reliable players at this point. He doesn't really fit that bill for me. So he'd be a fine fourth line ad, but I'd probably have some alternatives who play the defensive
Mhm.
side of the puck better than
Yeah,
him.
I think at this point, if you're not going to out like again, if you not that it should be the only thing you're thinking of here, but
Right.
if you are looking at rentals, you should look at rentals in terms of how do you match up against most likely the Rangers. Are you going to try to have more of a defensive third line and try to be able to match up that way? I don't think Richie gives you he's like an energy, can score a little bit, can chuck the knucks a little bit, but I don't think he's like again he's a fourth liner. Like you're not. Also, he's 2.5, so even retained, like it's not an insignificant number.
Mhm.
If he's like your second ad or something, but doesn't I don't think he does enough. I'm assuming he'll get traded and go somewhere, and like
Yeah.
I could see like Tampa being a team that's like, all right, let's add him and just see if he can bring a little something. They're always so good at extracting the most out of like their bottom six
Yep.
guys. He feels like a Tampa player to me.
Sure. And again, maybe the defense could be a net product of
Mhm.
Arizona. Whatever. Uh, Nick Bonino, who is reliable as they come
Mhm.
defensively, very, very good at what he does. Finishes, even though he's not
Sammy Blaze going back.
he's going back to the Blues.
He never scored a goal as a Ranger.
Wow.
That's amazing.
What a stupid trade. Wow.
It's a
Wow.
first Blay and I don't know what else.
They got a first.
Yes.
Good for them.
Well, the Rangers
So
have two.
right. So that
Hmm.
helps.
I
Okay.
wonder if it's like the worst of the two or something, or the better of the two.
Okay.
Basically, we'll find out. I'm sure.
Fair enough. Nick Bonino, I mean, very good defensively. Finishes the chances he does get. Doesn't really produce offensively himself. I just don't know what trying to fit him on the Devils, David. And he's a rental, 2.1 million. He would be terrific in some regard as a Devil. I just don't know if he's a 3C on the Devils, or a 4C.
Hmm.
Because what do you want your third line to be? Again, there's no identity to it currently. Do you want it to be scoring two-way?
Yeah.
Do you want it to be defensive? Because if you want it to be scoring or two-way, I do find Benino to be he can be a bit of a drag on transition. Like he's not really
Yeah.
a transition player, so he's tough to fit from that regard. That said, he's still going to be a net positive on any hockey team. Okay, maybe you can't. Maybe chemistry is going to be something you figure out.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd be interested in him. I mean, maybe you just do it a one fell swoop with the Meier stuff, and that would be very cool.
Sure. They
I
need to
mean,
send back one more contract, I believe.
okay.
Or considering what you think is going to go in the deal, I think they still need to clear one more contract.
Okay. I mean, this guy's played big games. He's won cups. He was a big reason.
Oh, Mikkola possibly to the Rangers as well.
No, are you kidding me? Stop!
Come on, Fitz. God, you know what's happening right now tonight. You realize this, right?
I mean, maybe from trading the first round pick, they said
I cannot do so. I cannot do so. But go throw some shekels on Seattle tonight. Hughes is hurt. Rangers just made a big trade. Devils got to get bombed tonight. It's just how it goes, and everyone's gonna freak. And then Fitz is gonna, the clouds are gonna open up, and Timo Meier is gonna, descend from the heavens, and everything will be okay. But tonight's got to be one of those shit show nights. It has to happen.
Maybe going from a second round pick to a first round pick meant they got Mikkola, a useful player, back.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
fucking great. Okay, yeah, Nick Bonino.
Thanks, Rangers, for ruining half our show.
Yeah,
not really, but still.
Yeah. All right, Nick Bonino.
I like him. I do. The only question is, like, if you put him on a third line that has Tomas Tatar, they're not doing anything well enough. Like, what are they? Are they trying to score? Are they more of a defensive line and just be plotting? If anything, like, he has played a little wing. I would not mind him as the third guy with Bashin and McLeod.
Sure.
Like, I think he
Rotate
can, and
him.
also he kills penalties. He can take face-offs for anybody. He's a good face-off guy, right? Like,
yes.
A really good face-off guy. He's protection in case things don't, you have injuries or all that. Yeah, I would be. I mean, I think they'd have to eat some money on it for sure. If you're also doing Timo, but you can make the case to me. You could always find a spot somewhere for Nick Bonino because of what he brings defensively.
Yep, chemistry and fit might be a question, but he's certainly a very useful hockey player. Okay.
Do we need to even bother with this?
Let's do the fan fiction quickly. Zach Parise, who still very good offensive play driver, still a good penalty killer. That's mostly it for the most part. Makes nothing this year, so you basically just add him. He'd be great, Dave. You want to talk about? I mean, if you swapped out Wood, could we do Bash and McLeod, Zach? I mean, that would be a lot. You want to talk about go-getters? I mean, all the go-getters and all of them. Well, two of them would have hands instead of that line only having one pair of hands in Bastion. There would at least be two pair of hands on that line. So again, though, the Islanders probably aren't selling, but he would be fun fan fiction.
Yeah, they're not selling. They just went out and traded for Horvat. Yeah. You can go get him for free next year, right?
There you go.
Zach is not, the Henrique Zach party that I think some people are pining for is not happening.
Yeah, sure.
Thank God. Well, I guess Henrique could, but yeah, we need to change the slide here.
Okay.
Actually, we need to change the slide again because the next name doesn't matter too.
Yeah, we could do Austin Watson. Like, all his numbers are bad except for his even strength defense and penalty killing as a fourth line rental. But I particularly don't find him to be a very good defensive player. Just I don't think he does anything well. Like, he doesn't close guys off. He's not like this great stick in a lane guy. So I think those numbers are kind of misleading from just a subjective standpoint. So no on Austin Watson. You're done. Okay, very good. Sam Lafferty, again, one of the reasons people like him, he's a swing position guy for the Blackhawks, bottom six. People like him because he's basically a variable contract, and he's there for next year as well. Decent defensive player. The finishing has gone crazy this year, so that's maybe why you're buying high on him as well. He's a good penalty killer. Yeah, sure, Dave. I've got time for Sam Lafferty as a Devil, but we're talking 5th, 6th, 7th round pick going back the other way. I don't care about how much term he's got on this contract.
Again, if the Devils feel they need to need to, whether it's put it this way, I don't think Holtz is going to be your 13th forward in the playoffs. There's no need for
Correct.
that. Like,
There's no need.
you're not going to put Holtz in game 2 of a playoff series after you lost game 1.
Well, roster limits don't matter anyway, right? So I mean,
no, but what I'm saying is like, he's not the next guy up in that situation. You're not putting a rookie in off a loss when somebody gets hurt. Like, the Devils may need to say, all right, I want a defensive guy somewhere in the mix.
Yep.
That's the kind of player. But again, yeah, you're talking like 2024 5th round pick or something. You know, like it's not much. But I think it's more of, you just brought up like defensively, and I'm saying, yeah, if you're the Devils, you can make the case to me that even if it's their 13th forward going into the playoffs, getting a body who is defensively responsible and can fill a hole in a pinch matters just as much as getting a depth defenseman as well.
Sure. Absolutely. All right, last guy here. We're going to skip the goalies. Sorry. Jordan Greenway of the Wild, who, again, are in the mix, but might have to move money around and shit. I don't know. His offensive numbers stink. His finishing numbers stink. His defensive numbers have climbed big the last 2 years, so I don't know. So maybe you make something of that. So this is a 4th liner, but his competition percentile, 78th percentile. $3 million next year and the year after. Probably just too much money, even if maybe there's something untapped in there for me, Dave.
Yeah, I do think there's more to him. I think I've seen him be good at times, but that being said, I thought when I was looking, I thought he had 2 years left, and I'd say, okay, if they and I guess they wouldn't eat money, but I'm like, okay, I could survive if I wanted to with 1 more year left. 2 more years is way too much. You know, you just can't. Is he someone? Yeah, he's a bigger guy defensively. I think he brings it. I think he has a little bit of an edge to him, but you know, you'd be hoping for like 3rd line offensive upside, and I'm just not sure he gets you there. He could be a fun 4th liner, but 2 more years at $3 million is too expensive. Again, when I had originally brought him up, I thought he had 1 more year.
Right. Okay, we're gonna pass on the goalies. All right, Dave. Why don't we start to wrap this up, because
sure,
this is the longest show.
We can put our faces back here.
Okay, there we go. Thanks for the heads up. Appreciate it. Okay, I mean, this is the Meier show. Go get him.
Yeah.
If you get Meier, I feel like you don't necessarily need to get a depth forward. Just go get the defenseman instead. I know everyone's getting their hopes up for him. Like, again, Mike Greer could just say, "Yeah, I'm not trading him. I'm not doing it yet."
Sure.
We don't know. And if that's the case, I really don't love enough of the scoring wingers enough, Dave, to go spend any type of 2nd, 3rd round picks or anything like that. I would probably just go get fits forward wise, like someone who's a penalty killer. I'm sure we could run through the names here of what we would do if not. Like I would do Meier, and then I would get, if Mikola's still a thing, Mikola, Kulikov, or Mata, and call it a day. If I can't get Meier, keep the same D names in play for me. And then probably Nino Niederreiter. That might be it for me. I don't know if there's enough there, right? You know, we went through all the scenarios. Give me what you got. Okay, they get Meier. Do you want another depth forward if they get Meier?
Yeah, I want someone for defensive purposes if they get Meier. Yeah,
okay.
If you could fit that out. Honestly, probably Bonino.
Yep.
Here's where it's tough, and I guess it's kind of cool that we have the Ranger perspective of this already, in a sense. Although you're gonna love this, Jeff. This is a tweet I just saw from your favorite Mons, the guy who I bewildered that one day. I would still think Timo Meier or Patrick Kane are still in play for the Rangers, even with the addition of Tarasenko and Mikkola.
Like, on what planet?
Fake? Cap fake?
Like, the cap is fake. It's also not like invisible.
I mean, yeah. How much did they eat on Tarasenko?
They must have.
I don't know. We have to. It seems like everyone's jumping the gun. Weeks was wrong again because he just amazing.
By the way, to those still listening, if you are, thanks.
Yes,
we'll probably do another trade thought show in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks when things have sizened up. Like we're not going to redo all this,
Can we
but
get Steve coming in, please?
we'll essentially
Uh-huh.
evolve what has happened since then. But okay, so perfect, and I'm with you. If they want to do it, I'm Meyer depth forward.
Yeah.
Like
The
yeah, you want
Rangers have 3 scoring lines now.
okay,
The Devils don't have a third line right now.
yeah,
I think you need to, if you have any chance at winning a series against the Rangers, within reason, obviously anything can happen. I think you need to have a third line, whether that means getting a defensive guy, whether it means saying O'Reilly's your option, or in the same regard, if they're going to go spend a lot of capital now, and maybe also the other teams are going to, are you the Devils? Do you say, yeah, maybe this is not the year to do it, and they go depth? I don't know. It's tough. I think the Devils roster at the top is better than the Rangers. I do. Are they deeper than them now? Offensively, probably not. Defense, yeah, I still think that they can go a little deeper, especially if they add something. That like I don't know how I feel about this now. I think it changes it of I don't want to throw away things that are important for rentals if I know I'm really not getting that much better in
yeah.
terms of forwards. But in the same regard, they go add Meier. I think they're even better. I think that's an even better ad than Tarasenko is by a lot.
Oh, of course, of course.
So I think it's all the more reason why he should still be big game hunting here. It's tough. The Rangers got better today.
Yep.
Let's call it what it is. The Rangers got better today. This is on Fitz, and like Devils haven't been playing all that great. They've still been getting wins. Great. Their best players out. This is tonight is so friggin' interesting now, Jeff.
Yep.
I know you'll be there.
No, it is. Again, I think if hopefully we get more injury about you. I guess apparently Martin Brodeur did something with Ryan Novozinsky today and said it's not that serious. But again, take everyone for not always telling the truthful value. Although I would find it surprising to say that specifically and it not be the case. But yeah, go get Meier. And then I'm mostly okay. Maybe there's just not going to be a fit for the bottom 6, or it's just not going to be perfect, or you're not going to like the two-way type, or it's going to be too niche of a guy. You could roll with as is forward wise if you get Meier, I think.
I still don't know for the third. I mean, unless you want to tell me that you're going to throw Mercer at center and just keep him there, or you think Howla, Tatar, Mercer is a good enough third line.
Maybe that's the way to go. Mercer center.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Definitely a depth defenseman. I don't know.
The temperature has risen in the Metro Division now, for sure. Because Pittsburgh's lurking, Washington's going to do something, Carolina has a lot of cap space. I'll say this: I think the Devils need to make the next move now. And
that's fair.
Timo. Like
that's probably fair.
If I know that there's been some reports that Carolina's in on Meier. We don't know that to be true or not. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. I still think they should be going to get a center one way or another, but you don't want to be left, playing musical chairs when you don't have a chair here, because that would suck. I mean, I understand this is the beginning of the window for the Devils, but I think every other team's going to add now. All of them are. Already the big domino went to the Metro. The Metro could eat up most of these assets now. So I think if you're the Devils, you need to be aggressive here. And again, I wonder if Fitz has, obviously he's going to look at Meier as more than 1 year.
You know what it is? I'll throw this out there. I think whatever they bring in for a bottom 6, probably just not going to get the chemistry you want in a 6-week span anyway, whatever it is. So like, I think you might just have to just cobble it together with what you got. You've got enough humans there. Find something to make it work. There's not going to be a magic elixir for your bottom 6 because they're bottom 6 players. So go get Meier, go get a defenseman, and I'm okay calling it a day if that's the case.
Go best on best. Go for it.
Yep.
All right,
we good here?
Yeah. I mean, we've only done 3.5 hours, so is that enough? Or
Oh my god, I got a headache.
Yeah.
All right, next show. I don't know when. I don't know. I didn't want to think about the next show. I want to go cry.
Next week's gonna kick my ass.
Right.
Let me bring up my phone live. let's see. When is there
Really don't
enough
feel like
games
doing
that have been
anything.
played? Maybe Sunday night is probably the
Okay,
net. Sorry. Yeah, I could do Sunday night though. I've played 2 games by then.
that's pretty standard for us
Next
anyway.
week's gonna be a wash for me. Like
Okay.
maybe and honestly, it might be Sunday the 19th is the next time I can do a show.
Yeah, that's fine.
Uh,
We do
yes,
Sundays
yes,
anyway.
sir. But we are reading the posts. I don't feel like responding to all of them. But yes, appreciate all the love. Appreciating seeing people who have been here. If you've done 3.5 hours with us, you get a gold
God,
star.
you nut jobs.
Yeah. You're as crazy as
Absolutely.
us. That's why we love you. But yeah, I appreciated the comment. It's so cool that the comments are in the StreamYard thing, so I could see all of them. We had so much to run through. It wasn't worth going back and forth on stuff today because we'd be here for 6 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is a really I think we found that this is cool, and it seems like all of you seem to enjoy it. So if this feels right, we should do more of these. So.
Yep. Oh my God, I've got a headache from a lot of things. I want to
Sounds
cry.
like you need a delicious Celsius energy drink.
You know what? I have not had my caffeine fix. That maybe
Okay.
you know what? Maybe that's what it is. Not even the Jack Hughes stuff. I've not had
We
my
really
Celsius.
need a 50s style, how they used to do product placement in shows back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh hey, it's up for breakfast. So we have rich chocolate Ovaltine. No, we need to do like a skit with Celsius at some point.
Drink your Celsius, kids.
Yeah, and be like, hey, we've already done the work for you. You want to give us money? And then they'll be like, no, you already did the work for us.
Yeah.
Come on, hit BioSteel. That's right. We're gonna leverage BioSteel with Celsius.
Hasn't been opened yet.
Oh.
Hasn't been
Yeah, I was
opened
gonna say the anything marshmallow scares the hell out of me. I am not a marshmallow fan, but I tried the marshmallow mandarin one.
yet. Yeah, it's terrific.
That is absolutely number 2 for me behind watermelon right now.
It's a mouth party. Yeah.
And on
All
that
right.
bombshell.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Maybe we'll. I mean, I don't know. The Jack thing. Yeah. No.
We'll be okay. I think the thing that I've worked on the most this year is
Just
the
ride.
the roller coaster is gonna end on an even track. You just got
Yeah.
there's gonna be ups and downs.
Yeah. You're right. All right. I needed to hear that. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.